Hello, beautiful people. You've just landed on Harry What Ifs. Today's featured story is what if Daphne Greengrass was the heir of Morgana and she fell in love with Harry Potter. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Hit subscribe and the notification bell. And if you're returning, you know the drill, like and share. Enough talk, let's get into the story. Chapter 1, Awakening Legacy. Daphne Greengrass bolted upright in bed, a scream dying in her throat. Her silk pajamas clung to her sweat-soaked skin as she gasped for breath in the darkness of the Slytherin fifth-year girls' dormitory. Not again, she whispered, pressing trembling fingers against her temple. 3 nights. 3 nights of the same dream. A woman with raven-black hair and eyes that shifted between storm gray and vibrant purple. A stone chamber illuminated by floating orbs of light. A voice that seemed to echo through time itself. The blood awakens. The time approaches. Tracy Davis stirred in the next bed. Daph? You okay? She murmured sleepily. Fine. Go back to sleep. Daphne slipped from beneath her emerald covers and padded silently to the bathroom. The face that stared back from the mirror looked haunted. Dark circles shadowed her blue eyes, and her normally perfect blonde hair hung in disarray. Something was happening to her, something she couldn't explain. She splashed cold water on her face and whispered, "Get it together, Greengrass." Returning to bed, she knew sleep wouldn't come again. Outside, the September moon hung low over the Black Lake. 5th year at Hogwarts had barely begun, and already everything felt wrong. The Ministry calling Harry Potter a liar about you-know-who's return. That horrible Umbridge woman simperingly taking over defense against the dark arts. And now these dreams. When morning came, Daphne had perfected her mask. The Ice Queen of Slytherin showed no weakness as she glided into the Great Hall for breakfast, her posture impeccable, her expression coolly disinterested. "You look terrible," Tracy said bluntly, sliding onto the bench beside her. "Thanks ever so," Daphne replied dryly, reaching for a piece of toast. "I'm serious. Are you sick? Just not sleeping well?" Across the hall, Potter entered with Granger and Weasley. He looked as sleep-deprived as she felt. Their eyes met briefly before both looked away. "Heard Potter got detention with Umbridge again," Blaise Zabini commented, joining them. "Boy wonder just can't keep his mouth shut." Daphne said nothing, spreading marmalade on her toast with precise movements. Her fingers tingled oddly, and the jar suddenly cracked, spiderweb fractures appearing in the glass. "Whoa!" Tracy exclaimed. Daphne snatched her hand back. "Defective jar," she muttered, heart racing. Strange things had been happening around her for days. Books flying off shelves when she walked past. Her inkwell boiling during transfiguration. The shower in the dormitory alternating between scalding and freezing whenever she lost focus. She hadn't experienced accidental magic since she was 8. "Better get to potions," she said, standing abruptly. Snape was in a fouler mood than usual, prowling between the cauldrons with a sneer permanently affixed to his sallow face. "Today's potion requires precision and control, qualities apparently foreign to most of you," he drawled. "The draft of peace is delicate. The slightest error will render it useless or worse." Daphne worked methodically, finding comfort in the precise routine of potion making. Measure, stir, adjust the flame. Her mother had taught her the basics of potions before she could read, one of the few useful things Cecilia Greengrass had done before becoming permanently installed at their French villa with her third husband. Steam rose from her cauldron in perfect silver spirals. The potion was turning the exact shade of turquoise described in the textbook when the whispering started. At first, Daphne thought someone was hissing behind her. She turned, but Tracy was focused on counting her porcupine quills. The whisper came again, indistinct but definitely there. "Blood of my blood." The ladle slipped from Daphne's suddenly nerveless fingers and clattered against the cauldron rim. The perfect potion rippled. "Miss Greengrass." Snape's voice cut through the classroom. I expected better from you. 5 points from Slytherin for carelessness. Daphne felt her cheeks burn, a rare display of emotion she couldn't control. Yes, Professor, she said tightly. Are you hallucinating now, too? Tracy whispered once Snape had moved on to terrorize Longbottom. What? No. I just thought I heard something. At the end of class, Snape held up Daphne's flask with a begrudging nod. Acceptable, Miss Greengrass, despite your earlier mishap. He pointed to Granger's. Also acceptable. Then, surprisingly, to Potter's. Barely passable, Potter. It seems miracles do occur. Potter looked as shocked as everyone else. As they filed out, Daphne accidentally bumped into him. A jolt like static electricity passed between them, making them both gasp. Watch where you're going, Greengrass, Weasley snapped. Sorry, Potter said at the same time, looking confused at his own apology. My fault, Daphne said coolly, adjusting her bag and hurrying away, heart pounding. What was that? The day deteriorated further in defense against the dark arts. Umbridge, with her pink cardigan and poisonous smile, had them reading chapter 3 of the world's most useless textbook. Wands away, quills out, she trilled. There will be no need for talking. The classroom was silent except for the rustle of pages and occasional cough. Daphne stared at her book, the words swimming before her eyes. The blood awakens. She gripped her quill so hard it snapped. Ink splattered across her parchment. Problem, Miss Greengrass? Umbridge asked sweetly. No, Professor. Daphne vanished the mess with a quick Evanesco and reached for another quill. I don't recall giving permission to use magic in my classroom, Umbridge said, her voice hardening. That will be detention tonight. Daphne's eyes widened. But, would you like to make it 2 nights? She clamped her mouth shut and nodded stiffly. 7 o'clock, my office, Umbridge said with a satisfied smile. When the bell rang, Daphne stuffed her book into her bag with uncharacteristic force. Detention with Umbridge, Tracy sympathized. Tough luck. Whatever. I'll survive. But as she walked to History of Magic, a wave of dizziness washed over her. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall as images flashed through her mind, a stone chamber. A book bound in midnight blue leather. A silver dagger. Greengrass? You okay? She looked up to see Potter standing there, frowning. Fine, she managed, straightening. Just missed a step. He looked skeptical but shrugged and continued on his way. That evening, Daphne presented herself at Umbridge's sickeningly pink office at precisely 7 o'clock. Ah, Miss Greengrass. Do come in, Umbridge said with her false smile. Oh. It seems we have a scheduling conflict. I already have Mr. Potter here for his detention. Harry Potter sat at a small desk, looking up with surprise. I can return tomorrow, Daphne offered. Nonsense. I have matters to attend to with the minister this week. You'll both serve detention now. Umbridge gestured to another desk she conjured. You will both be writing lines. Daphne took her seat, noting the strange black quill laid out for her. Miss Greengrass, you will write, I must respect authority, Umbridge instructed. Mr. Potter will continue with his usual line. You know the one, don't you, Mr. Potter? Potter's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Begin. No talking. Daphne picked up the quill with a sense of unease. No ink. She pressed it to the parchment and began to write. Pain sliced across the back of her hand as the words appeared in shining red ink. She barely suppressed a gasp, looking at her skin where the words, I must respect authority, were etching themselves. She shot a glance at Potter, who was grimly writing his own lines, the back of his hand already red and inflamed with, I must not tell lies. Blood magic. Umbridge was using blood magic on students. Daphne's parents might be distant, but they'd raised her with one clear understanding: blood magic was dangerous and powerful in ways the ministry didn't want acknowledged. She bent her head and continued writing, each line carving deeper. After an hour, she noticed something odd. While Potter's hand was raw and bleeding freely, the cuts on her hand were healing almost as soon as they formed, leaving faint pink lines that quickly faded. Umbridge noticed too. Her eyes narrowed as she waddled over. "Your hand, Miss Greengrass." Daphne held it out. The skin was smooth and unblemished. "Fascinating," Umbridge said softly, a calculating look in her bulging eyes. "Continue." By the time Umbridge released them 3 hours later, Daphne's hand remained unmarked while Potter's dripped blood onto his robes. "Here," she said once they were in the corridor, pulling a small jar from her bag. "Murtlap essence. It helps with cuts." Potter blinked at her. "Why do you have that?" "Potions kit. I keep a full range of healing supplies." He hesitated, then took it. "Thanks, Greengrass. That's unexpected. Don't read into it. Blood quills are illegal. What she's doing is wrong." Daphne turned to go, then paused. "Does Dumbledore know? Would it matter if he did?" Potter's voice was bitter. Something in his tone resonated with her. The feeling of being adrift, of adults failing in their most basic responsibilities. "I suppose not," she conceded. "Good night, Potter." "Wait, your hand. It's not hurt." She shrugged. "Lucky metabolism, I guess." The truth was, she had no idea why she'd healed. Just one more strange thing to add to the growing list. Back in her dormitory, Daphne waited until the others were asleep before retrieving the letter that had arrived that morning from her father. She'd been too busy to read it earlier. "Daphne, your grandmother's health has taken a turn. I've had her personal effects sent to you as requested. The family grimoire is included. I know you expressed interest in our genealogy. Handle it with care, some of the enchantments are quite old. Regards, Father." Daphne frowned. She hadn't requested anything from her grandmother, who was, last she heard, in perfect health at the family estate in Wales. A small package lay at the bottom of her trunk where the school owls had delivered it. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a book bound in midnight blue leather, just like in her vision. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was her family tree, but not the one she knew. This one traced back centuries further, with one name glowing faintly on the oldest page, Morgana Le Fay. A slip of parchment fell out, covered in her grandmother's elegant script. "The dreams have started, haven't they? They came to me at your age as well. The blood awakens in the female line every few generations. I've held this grimoire for you since you were born, knowing you would be the one. Learn its secrets, but be careful who knows. The ministry has sought Morgana's heir for centuries. The signs, dreams, uncontrolled magic, healing that defies explanation, attraction to places of old power. All will intensify until your 17th birthday, when the inheritance fully manifests. Trust no one with this knowledge. Not yet." With love and faith, Grandmother Eleanor Daphne sat frozen, the implications washing over her. Morgana Le Fay, the dark sorceress of legend, Merlin's greatest enemy. And she, Daphne, was her heir. Impossible, she whispered, but even as she said it, she knew it was true. The dreams, the strange magic, her hand healing from the blood quill, it all fit. She flipped through the grimoire, finding spells and potions she'd never seen in any Hogwarts text. Notes in various hands filled the margins, generations of women adding their discoveries. A page near the middle caught her eye. A drawing of a chamber beneath a castle, beneath Hogwarts, she realized with a shock. The text described a sanctuary created by Morgana herself during her time at the school, long before the founders established the modern institution. The Chamber of Whispers, where the veil between worlds grows thin. Sealed by blood and opened by the same. Daphne closed the book with trembling hands. If this was real, if she truly was Morgana's heir, everything she thought she knew about herself was wrong. Sleep eluded her that night. By morning, she'd made a decision. She needed to find this chamber, to see for herself if the grimoire spoke truth. Throughout the day, Daphne found it increasingly difficult to concentrate. In charms, they practiced silencing charms, and when she cast hers, every sound in the entire classroom ceased. Not just her raven's cause, but every student's voice, the rustle of parchment, even Flitwick's surprised squeak. Most impressive, Miss Greengrass, Flitwick said when the effect finally wore off. Perhaps a touch too much power behind it, but excellent control. In herbology, the venomous tentacula they were repotting actually shrank away from her touch instead of trying to strangle her like it did everyone else. Never seen anything like it, Professor Sprout commented, scratching her head. By dinner, rumors were circulating. Daphne ignored them, picking at her food while surreptitiously studying the grimoire hidden beneath the table. According to the notes, the Chamber of Whispers could be accessed through the dungeons, near where the Slytherin common room now stood. Earth to Daphne, Tracy waved a hand in front of her face. Malfoy's been trying to get your attention. Daphne looked up to see Draco's irritated expression. What? I said, are you joining the Inquisitorial Squad? Umbridge is giving special privileges to those who help maintain order. His chest puffed out, showing off his new badge. I'll pass. What? But we're all doing it. It's a chance to put Potter and his friends in their place. I have more important things to worry about than Potter, she said, though her thoughts flashed to the detention they'd shared. Malfoy's eyes narrowed. Like what? You've been acting strange all week. Mind your own business, Draco. Later that night, Daphne slipped out of the common room under a disillusionment charm. The grimoire had mentioned a corridor with a carving of a serpent eating its tail, an Ouroboros symbol that appeared repeatedly in Morgana's writings. The dungeons were silent and dark as she moved deeper, past the familiar paths to potions and the Slytherin quarters. The air grew colder, mustier. These corridors hadn't seen use in centuries. Just as she was beginning to think she'd made a wrong turn, she saw it, a faint etching in the stone wall, barely visible in the light of her wand. An Ouroboros. Her heart pounded as she pressed her palm against it. Nothing happened. Sealed by blood and opened by the same, she murmured, remembering the grimoire's words. With a steadying breath, she conjured a small pin and pricked her finger, letting a drop of blood fall onto the carving. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stone began to shift, sections rotating and sliding until a narrow archway opened. Cold blue light spilled out from whatever lay beyond. Daphne hesitated only a moment before stepping through. The chamber beyond took her breath away. It was circular, with a domed ceiling covered in constellations that shifted and moved like the night sky. Floating orbs of blue-white light illuminated ancient stone benches arranged around a central dais. On the dais sat a pedestal holding a large crystal that pulsed with inner light. Just like my dreams, she whispered, approaching the crystal cautiously. The moment her fingers touched its surface, the light within flared, and a voice spoke directly into her mind. At last, you've come. Blood of my blood. Daphne stumbled back, looking wildly around the empty chamber. Who's there? I am but an echo, a fragment of memory left for the one who would follow. You bear my blood, child. The last of my line with the gift. Morgana, Daphne breathed. The lies they've told about me, centuries of distortion. I was no dark lady, but one who sought to preserve the old ways when Merlin would destroy them. Magic in all its forms, not just the narrow path he deemed acceptable. Images flashed through Daphne's mind, a young woman with raven hair fighting to protect magical beings Merlin would have exterminated. Ancient rituals of healing and protection branded as dark, because they involved blood or sacrifice. The Ministry still fears what they cannot control. They hunt for my artifacts, my knowledge. And they will hunt you when they discover what you are. Why me? Why now? The timing is never accident. Power awakens when it is needed. Dark times approach, I have seen glimpses even from beyond the veil. My gifts manifest in you because you will need them. The crystal's light began to fade. Return with the grimoire. Learn what I have left for you. But be cautious, there are those who watch for signs of my return through my descendants. The Department of Mysteries has sought my heir for generations. Wait. I have so many questions. Time grows short. The connection wanes. Remember, history is written by the victors, but truth lives in blood and bone. Trust those who see beyond the divisions of your time. The crystal dimmed to a faint glow, and the presence faded. Daphne sank onto one of the stone benches, overwhelmed. Everything she'd been taught about Morgana Le Fay, evil sorceress, dark lady, enemy of all that was good in the wizarding world, contradicted what she'd just experienced. She'd need to return with the grimoire, as instructed. But the warning about the Department of Mysteries troubled her. If what the echo said was true, she wasn't just dealing with strange dreams and unexpected magic, she was potentially being hunted by the Ministry itself. The walk back to the Slytherin dormitory seemed to take forever. Her mind raced with implications. If she truly was Morgana's heir, what did that mean for her future? What powers would manifest as she approached her 17th birthday? And most troubling, who could she trust with such a dangerous secret? Miles away in London, deep within the Department of Mysteries, an ancient artifact sealed behind glass suddenly glowed with blue light. Alarms sounded, bringing bleary-eyed unspeakables running. "What is it?" demanded the department head. "The Morgana detector, sir," replied a young researcher. "It's activated for the first time in 73 years. Alert Arcturus Montague. Tell him to prepare his team." The department head stared at the glowing object with hungry eyes. After all these years, the heir of Morgana has finally revealed herself. The following morning, Daphne felt simultaneously exhausted and electrified. She'd barely slept after returning from the chamber, spending hours poring over the grimoire. The book contained spells she'd never imagined, magic that worked with natural forces rather than imposing wizards' will upon them. Different from what they learned at Hogwarts, yet not dark as she'd been taught to believe. She was so preoccupied that she walked straight into someone rounding the corner near the Great Hall. "Sorry, she looked up to find herself face to face with Harry Potter. "Oh. It's you." "Morning to you too, Greengrass," he said with a hint of amusement. "How's your hand?" she asked before she could stop herself. He glanced down at the still raw skin. "Better, thanks to the murtlap. I'd ask about yours, but still fine." She shifted uncomfortably. "Listen, Potter, can I ask you something?" His eyebrows rose in surprise. "Sure, I guess. Do you ever feel like everything you thought you knew about the wizarding world is wrong? Like there's a different truth underneath all the stories?" Something flickered in his green eyes, recognition, perhaps. "All the time," he said quietly. "Why?" Before she could respond, Umbridge's voice rang out from down the corridor. "Mr. Potter. Miss Greengrass. Congregating in the hallways is against Educational Decree number 25. 5 points from Gryffindor and Slytherin." "We were just talking, Professor," Potter said, his jaw tightening. "Perhaps another detention will remind you of the rules, Mr. Potter." Umbridge's eyes gleamed maliciously. "That's not fair," Daphne said before she could stop herself. "We literally just bumped into each other." Umbridge's gaze swiveled to her. "Then you can join him, Miss Greengrass. 7 o'clock. As Umbridge waddled away, Potter looked at Daphne with confusion. "Why'd you do that? Now you're stuck in detention again." "I hate injustice," she said simply. "And I hate her even more." A reluctant smile tugged at his lips. "Seems we might have something in common after all." Throughout the day, Daphne felt the weight of the grimoire in her bag, its presence like a silent heartbeat. During lunch, she slipped away to the library to research what the ministry knew about Morgana. The official histories painted her as a dark witch consumed by jealousy of Merlin, who turned to forbidden magic out of spite. Lies, she murmured, remembering the images from the crystal. There had to be other accounts, other perspectives. In a dusty corner of the library's restricted section, accessed with a note sheet forged with Snape's signature, she found a slim volume titled Alternative Histories of the Merlin Era. Its pages contained a very different version of Morgana, a priestess of the old religion, fighting to preserve ancient magical practices as Merlin sought to standardize magic under patriarchal control. That book's not on the approved reading list. Daphne jumped, slamming the book shut as Granger appeared between the stacks. I have permission, she said coolly. Granger raised an eyebrow. From Snape? For a book questioning the official history of Merlin? Unlikely. What do you want, Granger? Nothing. Just curious why a Slytherin is researching alternative magical histories. Her eyes were shrewd. Especially after Harry mentioned your strange question this morning. Doing your master's bidding, are you? Always watching out for precious Potter. The words came out harsher than Daphne intended. Granger's eyes flashed. Harry is my friend, not my master. And given your house's reputation, can you blame me for being suspicious? Daphne stood, tucking the book into her bag alongside the grimoire. Not all Slytherins worship at Malfoy's feet, Granger. Some of us think for ourselves. She brushed past the Gryffindor girl, but Granger caught her arm. Wait. I didn't mean, she sighed. Look, if you're genuinely interested in alternative magical theories, I might have some other resources. Daphne paused, surprised. Why would you help me? Because knowledge shouldn't be restricted based on house affiliation. Granger hesitated. And because Harry said you helped him with his hand. That counts for something. An unlikely alliance, but one Daphne suddenly realized she might need. If the ministry was indeed hunting for Morgana's heir, having someone like Granger, with her encyclopedic knowledge and proximity to Dumbledore through Potter, could prove valuable. I'll think about it, she said finally. But this stays between us for now. That evening's detention was even worse than the first. Umbridge seemed to take personal delight in watching Potter suffer as the blood quill cut deeper into his already damaged hand. Still healing abnormally quickly, Miss Greengrass. Umbridge remarked halfway through, examining Daphne's unmarked skin. How fascinating. Perhaps we should discuss this unusual trait of yours with the ministry. I have colleagues in the Department of Mysteries who study such anomalies. Daphne felt a chill run down her spine. The Department of Mysteries, exactly where the threat would come from, according to Morgana's echo. I'm sure it's nothing special, Professor, she said carefully. Just good healing. Runs in the family. Does it now? Which family might that be? The Greengrasses are not particularly noted for healing abilities. Umbridge's toad-like face came uncomfortably close. Your maternal line, perhaps. I wouldn't know, Professor. Write your lines, Miss Greengrass. We'll speak of this another time. When they were finally released, Potter was practically swaying on his feet, his hand dripping blood again. Here, Daphne said, pulling him into an empty classroom and producing a fresh jar of murtlap essence. You came prepared this time, he noted, sinking into a chair. I'm not an idiot. She took his injured hand without asking and began applying the soothing solution. She's targeting you specifically. Why? Potter's laugh was bitter. Because I'm telling the truth about Voldemort, and Fudge can't handle it. Easier to discredit me than admit he's back. Daphne didn't flinch at the name like most would. And you're sure? You actually saw him? I watched him rise from a cauldron using my blood. I fought him. I saw Cedric Diggory die. His green eyes met hers, challenging. So yeah, I'm sure. The rawness of his pain was startling. Daphne had never considered what it actually meant that Potter had witnessed these things, had suffered them. The wizarding world either worshipped him as a hero or vilified him as a liar, but no one seemed to see him as just a 16-year-old boy carrying an impossible burden. It reminded her, uncomfortably, of her own newly discovered situation. "I believe you," she said quietly. His eyes widened slightly. "You do. But you're a Slytherin." Her voice cooled. "We're not all Death Eaters in training, Potter." "That's not what I was going to say." He pulled his hand back once she'd finished wrapping it. "Thanks for this." Again. "What were you going to say, then?" "That you're Greengrass. Your family's neutral. Always has been, from what I've heard. So why stick your neck out now?" Daphne considered her answer carefully. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending not to see what's right in front of me." Something passed between them then, a moment of recognition, of shared understanding. "Be careful around Umbridge," he said suddenly. "The way she was looking at you tonight, it was like she found something valuable." "I noticed." Daphne packed away her healing supplies. "You should be careful too. Your hand's getting infected. You need proper healing." "It's fine." "It's not. But suit yourself." She headed for the door. "Good night, Potter." "Harry," he said. She turned back. "What?" "My name. It's Harry. If we're going to keep having these weird midnight healing sessions, you might as well use it." A smile tugged at her lips despite herself. "Good night, Harry. Try not to get yourself killed before our next attention." "No promises," he called after her, and she heard the smile in his voice. Back in her dormitory, Daphne found a note tucked into her pillowcase. "The Ministry has eyes at Hogwarts beyond Umbridge. Watch for a man named Montague. He is not what he seems." A friend. The handwriting wasn't familiar. Daphne stared at it, then carefully burned it to ash. Someone knew she was in danger, but who? And could they be trusted? Sleep brought more dreams, but different now. No longer just Morgana's chamber, but flashes of battles long past. Morgana facing Merlin across a field of fallen wizards. A female voice echoing, "You would destroy all magic that doesn't bend to your will. I cannot allow it." And beneath it all, a sense of time running out. Daphne woke knowing what she had to do. She needed to return to the Chamber of Whispers with the grimoire. She needed to learn what Morgana had left for her heir. And, most surprising of all, she needed to talk to Harry Potter again. Something told her their paths were now irreversibly intertwined. Arcturus Montague stepped from the fireplace into the headmaster's office, brushing ash from his immaculate robes. At 53, he cut an imposing figure, tall and lean, with silver threading his dark hair and cold blue eyes that missed nothing. "Dolores," he nodded to Umbridge, who simpered in greeting. "I came as soon as I received your message. Thank you for your prompt response, Arcturus. I believe we may have found what your department has been seeking. You have my attention." He remained standing, too careful to leave recorded evidence of his presence by sitting in the guest chair. "A student here, a fifth-year Slytherin named Daphne Greengrass, has displayed unusual abilities. Most notably, complete immunity to blood quill effects." Montague's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened. "Blood resistance. Interesting. Anything else?" "Unusual magical surges. Her professors report spells performing beyond normal parameters. And she's been researching alternative histories." "The Greengrass family," Montague mused. "Old blood, but not in the direct line we've been monitoring." He steepled his fingers. "Her mother's maiden name?" "Selwyn." "Ah." A cold smile touched his lips. "The Selwyns intermarried with the Layfrey family 3 centuries ago. We lost track of that branch, until now, it seems. Then she could be, let's not jump to conclusions, Dolores." But I will need to observe the girl. He checked his watch. I'll require a reason to be at Hogwarts. Perhaps as a ministry educational consultant. Of course. Umbridge's eyes gleamed. We must ensure our students receive proper guidance in these troubled times. Indeed. Montague moved toward the fireplace. One more thing, Dolores. If this girl is what we suspect, she's incredibly valuable to the department. Ensure no harm comes to her. Naturally. And keep Potter away from her. The last thing we need is the boy who lived interfering in ministry business. After he departed, Umbridge sat at the headmaster's desk, a satisfied smile on her face. Fudge would be pleased. If they could control Morgana's heir, the power at their disposal would be immeasurable. And if that power helped discredit Dumbledore and Potter in the process? All the better. The following morning at breakfast, the latest educational decree was announced, number 27, establishing a ministry educational consultant position to ensure quality instruction and student welfare. Please welcome Mr. Arcturus Montague, who will be observing classes and conducting student interviews over the coming weeks, Umbridge announced with poisonous sweetness. Daphne froze as she saw the tall, cold-eyed man standing beside Umbridge. Montague, the very name from the warning note. Across the hall, her eyes met Harry's. He tilted his head questioningly, sensing her tension even from a distance. Daphne shook her head slightly. Not here. But for the first time in her life, she found herself wishing she could switch house tables. She needed allies, and time was running out. Chapter 2, Uneasy Alliances. Daphne slipped into the abandoned classroom on the 4th floor, heart hammering against her ribs. She'd managed to dodge Montague for 3 days, but his presence loomed over the school like a storm cloud. Everywhere she turned, he seemed to appear, watching her with those calculating eyes. She checked her watch. Potter was late. The note she'd sent him had been deliberately vague, need to talk. Important. 4th floor, unused charms classroom. 8 p.m. Come alone. DG. The door creaked open. She spun, wand drawn. Easy, Harry said, hands raised slightly. Just me. Did anyone see you come? No. I used the, he hesitated. I was careful. Daphne lowered her wand but didn't pocket it. This Montague character. The ministry, consultant. What do you know about him? Harry shrugged. Nothing until he showed up. Why? He's looking for me. She paced the dusty classroom. I received a warning about him the night after our last detention. A warning? From who? I don't know. Anonymous note. Harry's eyes narrowed behind his glasses. That's suspicious. Everything is suspicious these days. Daphne ran a hand through her blonde hair, a rare display of agitation. Look, I wouldn't have contacted you, but I need information. What kind of information? The Department of Mysteries. What do you know about it? Harry stiffened. Why are you asking about that? Because Montague works there. He's an unspeakable. How do you know? I have sources. In truth, she'd overheard Professor Snape mention it to Professor McGonagall, but Potter didn't need to know that. Harry studied her for a long moment. What's really going on, Greengrass? First you help me with the blood quill, then you start asking strange questions about truth and history, now you're worried about an unspeakable watching you. Daphne weighed her options. She needed allies, but trusting Harry Potter with her secret seemed insane. Yet something about him, perhaps the way he carried his own burdens, made her think he might understand. If I tell you, your life gets more complicated, she warned. And it's already complicated enough. Story of my life. He leaned against a desk, arms crossed. Try me. I'm the heir of Morgana Le Fay. Silence stretched between them. Then Harry snorted. Right. And I'm Merlin's great-grandson. I'm serious, Potter. Harry, he corrected automatically. And that's not possible. Morgana lived over 1,000 years ago. Magic bloodlines don't disappear, they go dormant. Daphne pulled the grimoire from her bag. This is my family's grimoire. It traces our line back to her. The female line. Harry stared at the book, then back at her face. You're actually serious. I found her secret chamber beneath Hogwarts 3 nights ago. I spoke with something she left behind. A memory, an echo. Like Tom Riddle's diary. Harry's voice sharpened. No. Nothing like that. Just information. Warnings. She hesitated. According to Morgana, or whatever part of her consciousness remains, the Ministry has been hunting for her heir for generations. The Department of Mysteries wants whatever power her bloodline carries. Harry ran a hand through his perpetually messy hair. And you think that's why Montague is here? For you? I know it is. Umbridge practically told him about me after she noticed the blood quill wouldn't mark me. Wait, that's why your hand didn't scar. Harry's eyes widened. Because you're supposedly descended from Morgana? Not supposedly. I am. Daphne's patience thinned. Look, I didn't ask for this. Strange things have been happening to me for weeks. Dreams. Magic I can't control. But what Morgana showed me, it's not what the history books say. What do you mean? She wasn't evil. She wasn't dark. She was fighting to preserve old magic that Merlin wanted to eliminate, magic tied to the earth, to blood, to sacrifice. Magic the Ministry still classifies as dark, because they can't regulate it. Harry's expression shifted from skepticism to something more considering. History written by the victors, he murmured. Exactly. So what do you want from me? Daphne hadn't actually thought that far ahead. I don't know. Someone who understands what it's like to be hunted. Someone who knows what's at stake with Voldemort returning. You believe me about that? I told you I did. Harry studied her for a long moment. Show me this chamber. What? If what you're saying is true, show me Morgana's chamber. I've dealt with hidden chambers at Hogwarts before. Daphne hesitated. The chamber was her sanctuary, her connection to a heritage she barely understood. Letting Potter, Harry, in seemed dangerous. But so was facing Montague alone. Fine, she decided. Tomorrow night. Meet me in the dungeons near the Slytherin common room at midnight. I'll be there. As Harry turned to leave, Daphne called after him, Potter, why are you willing to help me? He paused at the door. Because I know what it's like when no one believes you. And because I'm tired of secrets making everything worse. A crooked smile flashed across his face. Besides, you helped me first. After he left, Daphne sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. She'd just revealed her most dangerous secret to Harry Potter of all people. If her housemates found out, she'd be labeled a traitor. If Montague found out, she'd become his primary target. Yet somehow, she felt lighter than she had in days. In Transfiguration the next morning, Daphne's preoccupation nearly caused a disaster. They were working on vanishing spells with live ravens, and her mind wandered to the upcoming meeting with Harry. Her spell went awry, not vanishing her raven but transforming it into a flock of tiny golden birds that swarmed the classroom. Miss Greengrass. Professor McGonagall's voice cut through the chaos. Control your spell. Daphne tried to reverse the magic, but the birds multiplied. Students ducked under desks as the golden flock swooped and dived. McGonagall raised her own wand and with a complex series of movements, gathered the birds back into a single raven. An impressive display of unintentional transfiguration, McGonagall said, eyeing Daphne with unusual interest. Though perhaps you might channel your obvious power with more focus in the future. Yes, Professor, Daphne muttered, face burning as Slytherins and Ravenclaws alike stared at her. 10 points from Slytherin for disruption, McGonagall continued, and 5 points to Slytherin for advanced magic, even if unintended. As they filed out after class, Tracy caught up to her. What was that? You never lose control of spells. Just distracted, Daphne said shortly. By what? Or should I say who? Tracy grinned. Don't think I haven't noticed you watching Potter. Daphne nearly tripped. What? I do not watch Potter. Please. Ever since that detention with Umbridge, you've been exchanging looks across the Great Hall. That's absurd. Is it? Then why are you blushing? Before Daphne could form a suitably cutting response, a smooth voice interrupted. Miss Greengrass? Arcturus Montague stood before them, smiling pleasantly. Up close, his eyes reminded Daphne of Arctic ice. Mr. Montague, she acknowledged coolly. I wonder if I might have a word. I'm conducting interviews with outstanding students, and Professor McGonagall suggested you after your impressive display just now. Tracy nudged her forward with a whispered, saved by the ministry, before hurrying away. Montague gestured toward an empty classroom. Every instinct screamed at Daphne to refuse, but she couldn't see a way out without raising suspicion. Of course, sir. The classroom door closed behind them with an ominous click. Montague didn't sit, instead circling her like a predator. The Greengrass family, he began. An old line, respectable. Your father works in international magical trade, does he not? Yes, sir. And your mother? The former Cecilia Selwyn. Daphne's heart jumped. Yes. Fascinating family, the Selwyns. Ancient blood. Connections to some of the oldest magical lines in Britain. His eyes never left her face. Including, if I recall correctly, the Layfey line. She forced her expression to remain neutral. I wouldn't know, sir. Genealogy isn't my particular interest. No. I heard you've been researching alternative magical histories recently. Granger must have talked, Daphne thought bitterly. Or perhaps he was just fishing. A project for history of magic, she lied smoothly. Professor Binns is dreadfully dull, so I thought I'd explore something more interesting. Indeed. Montague stopped his pacing directly in front of her. Miss Greengrass, are you aware that certain magical abilities can remain dormant in bloodlines for generations? Abilities that manifest when they're needed? Sir. Professor Umbridge mentioned your unusual resilience to certain magical effects. And now Professor McGonagall reports unexpected power in your spell work. His voice softened, almost friendly. These could be signs of a special heritage awakening. The Department of Mysteries studies such phenomena. We could help you understand what's happening to you. Daphne took an involuntary step back. I'm sure it's nothing so dramatic, sir. Just teenage magic fluctuations. My father mentioned experiencing similar issues at my age. Did he? Montague looked skeptical. If you ever wish to discuss these fluctuations, my office is on the 3rd floor. The ministry takes great interest in nurturing exceptional magical talent. I'll keep that in mind. May I go? I have potions next, and Professor Snape doesn't appreciate tardiness. Of course. He opened the door. One last thing, Miss Greengrass. I'd advise you to be selective about your associations. Some students at Hogwarts, Potter, for instance, attract trouble. It would be a shame for someone of your potential to be caught in the crossfire. The threat, thinly veiled as concern, hung in the air between them. Daphne nodded stiffly and hurried away, forcing herself not to run. She didn't stop until she reached the girls' bathroom on the 2nd floor, which was blessedly empty except for the ghost who haunted it. Go away, she snapped at moaning Myrtle, who promptly wailed and disappeared down a toilet. Daphne splashed cold water on her face, trying to calm her racing heart. Montague knew, or at least strongly suspected. And he'd as good as warned her away from Harry. Which meant someone had seen them together, despite Harry's caution. The bell rang, signaling the start of the next period. She'd be late to potions, but she couldn't bring herself to care. Everything was spiraling out of control too quickly. When she finally entered the potions classroom 10 minutes late, Snape merely glanced at her. "How kind of you to join us, Miss Greengrass." 5 points from Slytherin for tardiness. His dark eyes lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary before he returned to berating Longbottom. She slipped into her seat beside Tracy, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Across the dungeon, Harry watched her with open concern. She gave a small shake of her head, "Not now." After class, she tried to escape quickly, but Snape's voice stopped her. "Miss Greengrass." "A moment." She waited as the other students filed out, Harry throwing her one last worried glance before Granger pulled him along. When the dungeon was empty, Snape studied her with his impenetrable black eyes. "You appear distressed," he said finally. "I'm fine, Professor." "Indeed. And I suppose your spectacular failure to produce an acceptable strengthening solution today, when you normally excel at such potions, was merely a coincidence." Daphne looked at her feet. "I was distracted." "By what, I wonder?" "Perhaps by our ministry visitor who seems unusually interested in certain students." When she didn't respond, he continued, "I am your head of house, Miss Greengrass. If there are issues I should be aware of, now would be the time to mention them." For a wild moment, Daphne considered telling Snape everything. But the man's loyalties were as murky as his potions. "Nothing specific, sir. Just OWL stress." Snape's lips thinned. "Very well. If that changes, my office door is open to my Slytherins." He turned away, then added almost casually, "I would caution you that Montague is not a man to be trifled with. His interest in students is rarely benevolent." "Yes, sir. I've noticed." "Then exercise appropriate caution, Miss Greengrass. You may go." The encounter left her unsettled. Had Snape just warned her about Montague? And if so, why? The rest of the day passed in a blur. During dinner, Daphne picked at her food, too anxious about the midnight meeting with Harry to eat. Draco Malfoy's voice cut through her thoughts. "Greengrass, you're coming to the Inquisitorial Squad meeting tonight, right? Umbridge is giving us authority to dock points from other houses." "I already told you I'm not joining," she said. Draco's pale face darkened. "What's wrong with you lately? Don't you care about house loyalty?" "I care about not being Umbridge's puppet," she snapped, louder than intended. Several heads turned their way. "Keep your voice down," Pansy Parkinson hissed. "If you don't want to support the ministry's efforts, fine, but don't advertise it." "The ministry's efforts," Daphne repeated with a hollow laugh. "Is that what we're calling it? What's gotten into you?" Draco demanded. "First you defend Potter, now you're questioning the ministry. If I didn't know better, I'd think you've gone soft on blood traitors." Daphne stood, suddenly furious. "You know nothing about blood, Malfoy. Nothing about what it means or what it can do." The candles nearest their table flared unnaturally bright as her anger spiked. "Keep pushing me, and you'll learn." The great hall fell silent as the flames rose nearly to the ceiling before settling. Daphne grabbed her bag and strode out, feeling hundreds of eyes on her back. Outside, she leaned against the cool stone wall, trying to regain control. These emotional outbursts were getting dangerous. That was quite an exit. She whirled to find Hermione Granger regarding her with curious eyes. "What do you want now, Granger?" "To offer you this." Hermione held out a small piece of parchment. "Harry said you might need friends." Daphne took it cautiously. "What is it?" "Information on a study group." For defense against the dark arts. Hermione glanced around to ensure they were alone. Since Umbridge isn't actually teaching us anything. A study group, Daphne repeated skeptically. Led by Harry. Tonight at 8, room of requirement. 7th floor, opposite the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy. Hermione's expression grew serious. I don't know what's going on between you two, but Harry trusts you. That counts for something. We're not, there's nothing going on, Daphne protested. Right. Hermione didn't look convinced. Anyway, the offer stands. If you're really not on Umbridge's side, prove it. After Granger left, Daphne stared at the parchment. A defense study group led by Potter. It was madness. If she were caught with Gryffindors and other non-Slytherins in a secret club, her house would crucify her. But she needed to learn to control her growing powers, and Potter had faced Voldemort multiple times and survived. He might actually have something useful to teach. Besides, she had to speak with him before their midnight excursion to the Chamber of Whispers. This room of requirement would provide an opportunity. At 5 minutes to 8, Daphne found herself on the 7th floor, staring at a blank wall opposite a tapestry of a wizard attempting to teach trolls ballet. She felt ridiculous. You have to pace 3 times, said a dreamy voice behind her. Daphne turned to see a blonde Ravenclaw girl with radish earrings. Excuse me. 3 times, thinking about what you need. The girl smiled vaguely. I'm Luna, by the way. You're Daphne Greengrass. You have a lot of Raxperts around you lately. What? They're invisible creatures that make your brain fuzzy. Luna began pacing in front of the wall. They're attracted to secrets. Before Daphne could respond to this bizarre statement, a door materialized in the previously blank wall. Luna opened it, revealing a large room filled with students who fell silent at the sight of Daphne. What is SHE doing here? Ron Weasley demanded, pointing accusingly. I invited her, Harry said, stepping forward. She's a Slytherin, someone else objected. So what? Harry challenged, green eyes flashing. Last I checked, we were fighting Voldemort, not Slytherin House. Several people flinched at the name. Daphne stepped into the room, keeping her expression neutral despite the hostility radiating from most of the students. I'm here to learn, she said simply. Unless defending oneself against dark wizards is now exclusive to Gryffindors. You could be spying for Umbridge, Weasley pressed. Or Malfoy. Daphne laughed coldly. If you'd been at dinner tonight, Weasley, you'd know exactly where I stand with Malfoy and his inquisitorial squad. And if I were spying for Umbridge, why would I come alone to a room full of people who clearly hate me? She has a point, said a Chinese Ravenclaw girl. Hermione. Harry looked to his friend, clearly seeking backup. Hermione stepped forward. I support Harry's decision. We need to overcome house divisions if we're going to effectively oppose Umbridge, and Voldemort. The tension in the room remained thick, but no one else openly objected. Right, Harry said, taking control. Today we're practicing the disarming charm. I know it seems basic, but it saved my life more than once. The group broke into pairs. No one volunteered to partner with Daphne until Neville Longbottom reluctantly approached her. I guess we can practice together, he mumbled. Daphne nodded, surprised by his courage. Thanks, Longbottom. As they practiced, Daphne intentionally held back, not wanting to draw more attention. She mastered the disarming charm years ago under her grandmother's tutelage. Longbottom, however, improved noticeably over the hour, gaining confidence with each successful attempt. That's really good, Neville, she said after he finally disarmed her cleanly. He looked startled by the compliment. Thanks. Okay, that's enough for today, Harry called out. Same time next week. And remember, tell no one about this group. As the students filed out in small clusters, Daphne hung back until only Harry, Ron, and Hermione remained. That went better than expected, she commented. No one hexed you, so yeah, Ron agreed grudgingly. Harry gave his friend a look. Ron, can you give us a minute? What? Oh. Ron glanced between them suspiciously. Fine. But we're waiting outside, mate. He dragged a reluctant Hermione toward the door. When they were alone, Harry asked, Are we still on for tonight? Yes, but we have a problem. Montague knows something's going on. He questioned me today about my special heritage and warned me away from you specifically. Harry frowned. How could he know we've been talking? I don't know, but we need to be extra careful. Daphne lowered her voice further. And after what happened at dinner, the entire school will be watching me. What happened at dinner? I lost my temper with Malfoy and accidentally made the candles flare up. Another manifestation of, whatever this is. Harry ran a hand through his hair. This is getting complicated. I tried to warn you, she reminded him. My life isn't exactly simple right now. Yeah, well, join the club. He grinned suddenly, the expression transforming his face. Speaking of which, what did you think of the DA? Is that what this group is called? Dumbledore's Army. Ron's idea, actually. Daphne shook her head. Subtle. We're not exactly going for subtle. We're learning to fight. You're not bad at teaching, she admitted. Most of them improved noticeably. Even Neville, and you weren't exactly pushing him. She raised an eyebrow. You noticed. I notice a lot of things. His green eyes held hers for a moment too long, and Daphne felt an odd flutter in her stomach. Midnight, she said, breaking the moment. The corridor outside the Slytherin common room. Don't be late, Potter. Harry, he corrected again. Don't be late, Harry. She allowed herself a small smile before slipping past him. Outside, Weasley eyed her suspiciously as she exited. What are you playing at, Greengrass? None of your business, Weasley. If you hurt him, Ron, Hermione interrupted, let's go. We have prefect rounds tonight. Daphne waited until they disappeared around the corner before making her way back to the Slytherin dormitories. The common room fell silent when she entered, hostile eyes tracking her progress. Nice of you to join us, Pansy said nastily. Have fun with your new Gryffindor friends. So they knew. Daphne kept walking, head high. Blood traitor, someone whispered just loud enough to be heard. She stopped, turned slowly. What did you say? A sixth-year boy she barely knew smirked at her. You heard me. Consorting with Potter and his mudblood friend. What would your family say? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The fire in the grate burned blue for a heartbeat. My family, Daphne said softly, dangerously, has magic in our veins older than your entire pathetic lineage. Don't presume to lecture me about blood, Montague. Graham Montague, relation to Arcturus, paled slightly. You think you're special, Greengrass? The Ice Queen above it all. You're nothing. I'm more than you can imagine, she responded, the words flowing from some deeper part of her. And when the time comes, you'll remember this moment. She left him gaping and continued to the girls' dormitory, her heart pounding. She hadn't meant to say that, hadn't even thought it consciously. The words had simply come, laden with power. Tracy was waiting on her bed. What the hell is going on with you? First the scene at dinner, then sneaking off to Potter's Little Defense Club, now threatening Graham Montague. You knew about the defense club? Daphne asked, genuinely surprised. Theo saw you on the 7th floor with Loony Lovegood. Wasn't hard to piece together. Tracy lowered her voice. Daph, are you trying to commit social suicide? Because this is how you do it. I don't care what they think. Since when? You've spent 4 years cultivating the perfect Ice Queen persona. What changed? Everything, Daphne thought. But she couldn't tell Tracy that. "I'm tired of pretending," she said instead. Malfoy strutting around like he owned Slytherin. Umbridge torturing students with blood quills. The Ministry lying about Voldemort's return. Tracy flinched at the name. "So you do believe Potter? Don't you? Your family's neutral like mine. You know the signs." "Maybe." Tracy looked troubled. "But you can believe Potter without joining him, Daph. Sometimes neutrality isn't an option. This is about more than Potter, isn't it?" Tracy studied her face. "Something's happened to you. Something you're not telling me." Daphne hesitated. Tracy had been her friend since first year. They weren't emotionally close, Slytherins rarely were, but they'd always been honest with each other. "I can't explain yet," she said finally. "But I will. Once I understand it better myself." Tracy didn't look happy, but she nodded. "Fine. But be careful. There are rumors about why that Ministry man is here. Something about finding a student with special abilities." Daphne kept her face carefully blank. "Really? Who?" "No one knows. But the way he watches you." Tracy shrugged. "Just watch your back. Always do." After Tracy left, Daphne sat on her bed with the grimoire open in her lap. The pages seemed to turn themselves to a section on elemental magic, control of fire, water, air, and earth through focused will. She studied it until 11:30, then quietly dressed in dark clothes and slipped from the dormitory under a disillusionment charm. The common room was mostly empty, just a few seventh-years studying for newts. She waited in the shadows until the entrance opened for a returning prefect, then slipped out behind him. The dungeon corridor was dimly lit by widely spaced torches. "Harry," she whispered. "Here." His voice came from empty air near the wall. "Are you invisible?" "Invisibility cloak." His head appeared, floating disconcertingly in midair. "Family heirloom." "Useful," she acknowledged. "Follow me, and stay close." She led him deeper into the dungeons, past the potions classroom to corridors rarely used by students. The air grew colder, mustier. "How did you find this place?" Harry asked quietly. The grimoire had a map, and I sensed it, somehow. They turned a final corner, and there it was, the carved Ouroboros, faintly visible in the light of her wand. "Blood magic opens it," she explained, conjuring a pin. "Wait." Harry caught her hand. "Let me." "What?" "No, it has to be my blood. I'm the heir." "Just a theory," he said. "If Morgana's chamber is anything like the Chamber of Secrets, it might respond to magical intent as much as blood. Try just pressing your hand against it first." Skeptical but willing to try, Daphne placed her palm flat against the stone serpent. Nothing happened. "Now focus," Harry said. "Think about being Morgana's heir. About belonging there." Daphne closed her eyes, concentrating on the connection she felt to Morgana, the dreams, the awakening power. A warmth spread from her center down her arm to her palm. The stone beneath her hand grew hot, then shifted. She opened her eyes to see the wall rearranging itself, opening into an archway without a drop of blood spilled. "How did you know that would work?" she demanded. Harry looked slightly embarrassed. "I didn't, exactly. But the Chamber of Secrets needed Parseltongue, Slytherin's gift to his heirs. I thought maybe Morgana would have created something similar for her bloodline." "Clever," she admitted, impressed despite herself. They stepped through the archway into the circular chamber. The blue-white orbs of light brightened at their entrance, illuminating the stone benches and the central dais with its crystal. Harry turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "This is incredible. And no one knows it's here." "Just us, as far as I know." Daphne moved toward the crystal. "This is where I communicated with Morgana's echo before." Harry followed, studying the constellations on the domed ceiling. These aren't random. They're aligned to specific magical conjunctions. At her surprised look, he shrugged. Astronomy's one of my better subjects. Daphne placed her hand on the crystal, expecting it to light up as before. Instead, it remained dormant. It's not working, she frowned. The grimoire, Harry suggested. You said Morgana told you to bring it. Daphne removed the book from her bag and placed it on the pedestal beside the crystal. The moment the leather touched the stone, the crystal flared to life, bathing them in pulsing blue light. You've returned. And brought another. The voice filled the chamber, neither male nor female, yet somehow familiar. Yes, Daphne answered. This is Harry Potter. He's helping me. Harry Potter. The boy marked by Voldemort. Interesting. Your fates are more intertwined than I foresaw. Harry stepped forward. Are you really Morgana Le Fay? A fragment. An impression. Memory and magic combined. Not truly Morgana, but enough of her to guide her heir. Why did you want the grimoire? Daphne asked. Place your hands on the book. Both of you. Daphne glanced at Harry, who nodded. Together, they placed their palms on the ancient leather cover. The chamber spun around them, dissolving into swirling mist. When it cleared, they stood in the same space, but transformed, richly appointed with tapestries, a large wooden table covered in scrolls, shelves of bottles and magical implements. A woman bent over the table, her raven hair falling forward to obscure her face. She looked up, and Daphne gasped. The same woman from her dreams, Morgana Le Fay, young and beautiful, with eyes that shifted from gray to purple. She can't see or hear us, Harry whispered, waving a hand in front of Morgana's face. It's like a pensive memory. Morgana spoke, though not to them, the wards are failing. Merlin's forces approach. I must secure the artifacts. She moved to a chest in the corner, removing 3 objects, a silver dagger with a crystal hilt, a small purple stone on a chain, and an ancient-looking wand of dark wood. The triad of power, she murmured. Too dangerous together. They must be separated. The scene shifted. Morgana stood before 3 identical pedestals in a different chamber. The dagger of souls to the north, hidden where water meets stone. The heart of Avalon to the west, guarded by those I saved from Merlin's purge. And the blackthorn wand here, beneath Hogwarts, where my blood may find it in the hour of greatest need. She placed the wand on the central pedestal, which sealed itself into a column of stone. Morgana pressed her palm against it, leaving a bloody handprint that glowed briefly before fading. When the heir awakens, let her find her rightful inheritance. Let her complete what I could not. The scene dissolved, returning them to the present-day chamber. The crystal's light dimmed slightly. Now you understand. The blackthorn wand lies hidden here, waiting for the true heir. The other artifacts scattered for safekeeping. What exactly did Morgana want to complete? Harry asked, looking troubled. The restoration of balance. Merlin's vision of magic prevailed, structured, controlled, male-dominated. He stripped away the old ways, the wild magic, the connection to earth and blood and sacrifice. What you call dark magic is merely the other half of a whole that was sundered. And these artifacts, what do they do? Daphne asked. Together, they can tear the veil between worlds. Apart, they serve different purposes. The dagger severs soul from body. The heart provides protection against all magical attack. And the wand channels power without ministry restriction or trace. Harry and Daphne exchanged glances. That's why the ministry wants to find Morgana's heir, Harry realized. To get these artifacts. Yes. But they seek them for control, not balance. Arcturus Montague's grandfather attempted to force your grandmother to reveal their locations. She resisted. Now he hunts you, Daphne Greengrass, believing you will lead him to all three. My grandmother never mentioned any of this. She protected you as long as she could. But the blood awakens when it will, not when it is convenient. Daphne felt overwhelmed. What am I supposed to do? Find the blackthorn wand here. Master its power. Then decide your own path. The legacy is yours to define. The crystal's light began to fade. Beware Montague. He has waited decades for this moment. And beware the Dark Lord who would use you for his own purpose if he knew. Wait. Daphne called. How do I find the wand? The grimoire contains the ritual. But it requires sacrifice freely given from one who is not of the blood. Trust is the key. The light extinguished, leaving them in the softer glow of the floating orbs. Harry broke the silence first. Well, that was intense. That's one word for it, Daphne agreed, feeling shaky. What do we do now? Find the wand, I guess. Harry looked thoughtful. Though I'm not sure how I feel about rituals requiring sacrifice freely given. It doesn't necessarily mean blood sacrifice, Daphne pointed out. It could be anything valuable willingly offered. Right. Harry didn't look convinced. Let's check the grimoire. They spent the next hour poring over the book, finally finding a section on the blackthorn wand. The ritual required a full moon, specific incantations, and yes, a sacrifice, blood from someone who cared about the heir enough to offer it freely. Blood magic, Harry said flatly. It's not dark, Daphne insisted. It's just, old. Powerful because it uses life force, not just magical energy. I've had bad experiences with blood magic, Harry said, unconsciously rubbing his forearm where, Daphne remembered, Voldemort had taken his blood for the resurrection ritual. This is different, she argued. It's consensual. Freely given. Harry sighed. The full moon's in 3 days. That doesn't give us much time to prepare. Us? Daphne raised an eyebrow. I don't recall asking you to participate in the ritual. Who else are you going to ask? You need someone who knows your secret and is willing to bleed for you. Not exactly a long list, is it? He had a point, though his assumption irritated her. Fine. But we need to be careful. Montague's watching both of us now. And Umbridge has her inquisitorial squad patrolling the corridors. Harry checked his watch. Speaking of which, we should head back. It's nearly 2 in the morning. They returned to the dungeon corridor in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside the entrance to the Slytherin common room, they paused. Thanks, Daphne said awkwardly. For coming tonight. For believing me. Harry smiled, the expression softening his features. It's easier to believe the impossible once you've lived through it a few times. I suppose it would be. She hesitated. Be careful getting back to Gryffindor Tower. If Malfoy catches you. I'll be fine. Invisibility cloak, remember? He pulled it over his head, disappearing completely this time. See you at the next DA meeting. Probably not a good idea. My house already suspects I'm consorting with the enemy. Right. He sounded disappointed. We'll figure something out for the ritual then. Harry, she said as he turned to leave, what made you decide to trust me? Really? There was a pause, then his disembodied voice replied, the way you helped me after detention without asking anything in return. No one's ever done that before, help just because it was right. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading down the corridor. Daphne whispered the password and slipped into the common room, her mind whirling. 3 days until the full moon. 3 days to prepare for a ritual she barely understood, with power she couldn't control, all while avoiding Montague's increasingly focused attention. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Harry Potter had become her most trusted ally. The world had definitely gone mad. The following day brought fresh challenges. Overnight, a new educational decree had appeared, number 28, prohibiting student gatherings of 3 or more without explicit approval. She knows, Hermione whispered to Daphne during a chance meeting in the library. Someone must have told her about the DA. Not me, Daphne hissed back. I know that. But we have to be more careful. Harry says the meeting's still on, but we're changing locations. I told him I can't come anyway. Too risky. Hermione looked disappointed. You were good with Neville. He actually felt confident for once. I have other priorities right now. The research you're doing. About Morgana? When Daphne looked alarmed, Hermione added, Harry didn't tell me details. Just that you were exploring alternative historical perspectives. It's complicated. It always is with Harry, Hermione said with surprising sympathy. Before they could continue, a shadow fell across the table. Arcturus Montague stood there, smiling pleasantly. Miss Granger, Miss Greengrass. What an interesting pairing. Both girls straightened, expressions carefully neutral. We're discussing potions, sir, Hermione said smoothly. Inter-house study partners. Professor Snape's suggestion. Indeed. Montague looked skeptical. How progressive of Professor Snape. Was there something you needed, Mr. Montague? Daphne asked politely. Just making my rounds. The minister is quite concerned about inappropriate influences at Hogwarts. His cold eyes lingered on Daphne. I'd hate to see promising students led astray. After he departed, Hermione let out a breath. He's horrible. Worse than Umbridge in some ways. He's dangerous, Daphne corrected. And he's focusing on me. Why? Daphne considered Hermione carefully. The Gryffindor was undeniably intelligent, possibly the brightest witch in their year. And she was Harry's closest friend. If something happened to Daphne, Hermione might be the only one who could help him understand the implications. I need to show you something, she decided. Not here. Meet me in the second-floor girls' bathroom after dinner. The one Moaning Myrtle haunts. Hermione looked surprised but nodded. I'll be there. That evening, Daphne waited nervously in the bathroom, the grimoire hidden in her bag. The door opened, revealing not just Hermione but Harry as well. I told her to come alone, Daphne said accusingly. I thought we agreed to trust each other, Harry countered. No more secrets. This isn't about trust. It's about safety in numbers. Montague's watching all of us. Which is exactly why I should know what you're telling Hermione. Daphne sighed in frustration. Fine. But this complicates things. She explained about the grimoire, her heritage, and Morgana's chamber, showing them the relevant pages. Hermione, predictably, had 1,000 questions. This contradicts everything in the historical record, she said, examining the book with academic fervor. If Morgana was actually fighting to preserve older forms of magic rather than opposing Merlin out of jealousy or evil intent, it changes the entire foundation of modern magical theory, Daphne finished for her. And you're planning to perform a blood ritual to find her wand? Hermione looked concerned. Harry, you can't participate in this. It's too dangerous. Says who? Harry challenged. If it helps Daphne control her powers and keeps these artifacts away from the Ministry, and Voldemort, isn't that worth the risk? But blood magic isn't inherently dark, Daphne interjected. That's Merlin's classification, not an objective truth. Blood freely given has power because it carries intent and life force, not because it's evil. Hermione bit her lip, clearly torn between academic fascination and ingrained caution. I still don't like it. But I'll help research the ritual. Make sure we understand exactly what's involved before you attempt it. Thank you, Daphne said sincerely. They agreed to meet again the following evening to prepare. As they left the bathroom, checking carefully for inquisitorial squad members, Daphne pulled Harry aside. This ritual requires trust, she reminded him. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no turning back. Harry's green eyes met hers steadily. I'm sure. Besides, who else are you going to get? Malfoy? The absurdity of the suggestion made her smile. Hardly. But this creates a magical bond between us. That's not something to undertake lightly. My life hasn't exactly been characterized by caution, he pointed out. And honestly, of all the magical bonds I might end up with, one to you seems less terrible than most. It wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement, but something in his tone made that strange flutter return to her stomach. Until tomorrow, then, she said, turning away before he could see the faint color in her cheeks. Daphne, he called after her. Be careful. She nodded, not trusting her voice suddenly, and hurried toward the dungeons. The next day passed in a blur of classes and tense meals. The animosity from her housemates had evolved into something colder, more deliberate. Someone had hexed her bed to freeze her belongings. Another had charmed her quills to write insults instead of notes. Childish pranks, but the message was clear, she was an outcast now. Tracy still sat beside her, but even she maintained a careful distance in public. Only Blaise Zabini seemed unaffected by the house's collective shunning, offering her a sardonic smile at lunch. Enjoying your pariah status, he asked, sliding onto the bench beside her. Immensely, she replied dryly. Though I'm surprised you're risking contamination by association. Please. As if I care what Malfoy and his sycophants think. Blaise's dark eyes glittered with amusement. Besides, I've always found you more interesting than the rest of our dull housemates. High praise indeed. The ministry man was asking about you, he said, lowering his voice. Cornered me after arithmancy, wanted to know if you'd been acting strangely. Daphne stiffened. What did you tell him? That you've always been strange, of course. He grinned. In the most interesting ways. Helpful. I try. His expression grew serious. Be careful, Greengrass. Powerful men asking questions about pretty girls is never a good sign. I can handle myself. I'm sure you can. He stood gracefully. But even ice queens need allies sometimes. She watched him go, thoughtful. Blaise had always operated on the periphery of Slytherin politics, too wealthy and well-connected to bother with Malfoy's posturing. Having him as an ally, or at least not an enemy, could prove useful. That evening, she met Harry and Hermione in the room of requirement, which had transformed itself into a perfect space for ritual preparation, circular, with a stone floor inscribed with astronomical symbols and shelves containing rare ingredients. This room is incredible, Daphne marveled, examining a jar of moonstone dust that would have cost a fortune at an apothecary. It becomes whatever you need, Harry explained. We've been using it for DA meetings. Speaking of which, Hermione said, we had another one last night. Neville asked about you. Daphne raised an eyebrow. Longbottom? Why? He said you were the first Slytherin who ever treated him like a person instead of a joke. Hermione sounded approving. He's improved tremendously with the disarming charm. Good for him. Daphne turned her attention to the grimoire. The ritual requires specific preparations. The sacrifice must purify themselves for 24 hours beforehand. No meat, no alcohol, no physical relations. Harry blushed slightly at the last requirement. Not a problem. The heir must fast from moonrise to moonrise, Daphne continued. And we both need to be ritually cleansed with water containing lotus petals and sage. I've prepared that already, Hermione said, pointing to 2 silver basins. And I found a reference text that confirms most of what the grimoire says about the ritual. It's legitimate ancient magic, not dark arts. Thanks, Hermione. Harry squeezed his friend's shoulder. They spent hours reviewing the procedure, memorizing the incantations, and preparing the ritual items. By the time they finished, it was well past midnight. "Tomorrow night, then," Daphne said. "Moonrise is at 8:17. We'll need to be in the chamber by 8. How do we get past the Inquisitorial squad?" Hermione worried. "They're patrolling everywhere." "Leave that to me," Harry said with a confident grin. "I've got an idea." The day of the full moon dawned clear and bright. Daphne, who had begun her fast at moonrise the previous night, felt lightheaded and strangely detached as she moved through her classes. The lack of food combined with anticipation left her drifting between hyperawareness and dreamlike dissociation. In herbology, she accidentally brushed against a venomous tentacula and, instead of attacking her, the plant curled around her arm almost affectionately. "Most extraordinary," Professor Sprout murmured. "It seems to like you, Miss Greengrass." "She's always had a way with dangerous things," Blaise commented with a significant glance toward the Gryffindor side of the greenhouse, where Harry was wrestling with his own plant. In Transfiguration, her spell to turn a teacup into a rat produced a sleek silver creature with intelligent blue eyes that sat on her desk watching her curiously instead of scurrying away like the other students' rats. "Exceptional coloration, Miss Greengrass," Professor McGonagall noted. 5 points to Slytherin for advanced transfiguration. By dinner, which she had to skip due to the fast, Daphne felt as if she were walking through water, everything slowed and rippling around her. She met Harry and Hermione in an abandoned classroom near the dungeons at 7:30. "You look terrible," Hermione said bluntly. "Thanks," Daphne replied, leaning against the wall for support. "Fasting affects me strongly. Here." Harry offered her a vial of clear liquid. "Pepper-up potion. Not food, so it shouldn't affect the ritual." She drank it gratefully, feeling warmth spread through her veins. "That helps. What's the plan for getting to the chamber?" Harry pulled out a worn piece of parchment. "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good," he intoned, touching it with his wand. Ink spread across the surface, forming a detailed map of Hogwarts, complete with tiny moving dots labeled with names. "What is that?" Daphne asked, amazed. "Marauder's map. Shows everyone in the castle and where they are." Harry pointed to a cluster of dots. "Inquisitorial squad members are here, here, and here. Montague's in his office on the 3rd floor. We need to take this route to avoid them all." "That's incredibly useful," Daphne admitted. "No wonder you never get caught." "Not never," Harry corrected with a grin. "Just less often than I should." They made their way carefully through the castle, Harry consulting the map at every turn. As they approached the dungeon corridor leading to the Chamber of Whispers, he suddenly pulled them into an alcove. "Snape," he whispered, pointing to a dot moving their way. They pressed themselves against the wall, barely breathing as Snape's footsteps approached. He paused near their hiding spot, and for a heart-stopping moment, Daphne thought he'd sensed them. Then he continued on, robes billowing behind him. "That was close," Hermione breathed once he was gone. They reached the Ouroboros carving without further incident. Daphne pressed her palm against it, focusing on her connection to Morgana, and the wall shifted open. "I'll wait here," Hermione said, drawing her wand. "I'll warn you if anyone comes." Inside the chamber, the floating orbs brightened to welcome them. The crystal on the dais pulsed gently, as if anticipating the ritual. "Are you ready?" Daphne asked, removing ritual items from her bag, a silver bowl, the purification water Hermione had prepared, a small ceremonial knife, white candles, and the grimoire. Harry nodded, his expression determined. "What do I do first?" "We both need to be cleansed." She gestured to the water. "Remove your outer robes and roll up your sleeves." They took turns washing their hands, faces, and arms with the lotus sage water, which tingled pleasantly against the skin. Daphne spoke the purification incantation from the grimoire as they did so. "Aqua puritatis, mendaer corpus, mendaer anima, mendaer magia." Next, they arranged the candles in a circle around the dais and lit them with a whispered incendio. The flames burned unusually bright, casting long shadows across the chamber. "Now the hard part," Daphne said, placing the silver bowl on the pedestal beside the crystal. "I need your blood freely given. 3 drops for the ritual." Harry rolled up his sleeve further, exposing his forearm. "Here." "Yes." She handed him the knife. "It has to be your choice. Your cut. Your gift." He didn't hesitate, drawing the blade across his skin with a quick, practiced motion that made her wonder how many times he'd been hurt before. Blood welled from the shallow cut, and he held his arm over the bowl, letting 3 drops fall into it. "Sanguis donatum, sanguis volens, sanguis potens," Daphne chanted, her voice taking on a resonant quality that filled the chamber. The blood in the bowl began to glow with a soft red light. Daphne pricked her own finger, adding a single drop to the mixture. "Sanguis hierdis, sanguis morgana, sanguis potestas." The combined blood ignited, burning with a blue flame that cast no heat. Daphne placed her hands on either side of the bowl and continued the incantation, the Latin words flowing from her memory as if she'd known them all her life. "Invenire hereditatem, invenire potentiam, invenire veritatem." The crystal beside the bowl flared blindingly bright, and the entire chamber began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling as the stone floor rumbled. "Is this supposed to happen?" Harry asked, alarmed. Before Daphne could answer, the central dais split down the middle, the 2 halves sliding apart to reveal a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "I think it worked," she said, staring at the opening. They exchanged glances, then Harry lit his wand and led the way down the stairs. Daphne followed, the grimoire clutched to her chest. The staircase spiraled deep beneath the chamber, ending in a small octagonal room. In the center stood the stone column from Morgana's memory, still bearing the faint imprint of a handprint. "This is it," Daphne breathed. "The hiding place of the blackthorn wand." She approached the column, studying the handprint. It was slightly smaller than her own hand, but similar in shape. Morgana's hand. "What now?" Harry asked, staying close behind her. "I place my hand over hers, I think. Complete the connection." Daphne took a deep breath and pressed her palm against the ancient handprint. At first, nothing happened. Then a searing pain shot through her arm, and she cried out, trying to pull away, but her hand seemed fused to the stone. "Daphne!" Harry moved to help her, but she shook her head. "No, it's part of the test, I can feel it." The pain intensified, blood seeping from beneath her palm. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The column rumbled and began to sink into the floor, revealing a slender wand of dark, twisted wood resting on a velvet cushion. The blackthorn wand. With trembling fingers, Daphne lifted it. The moment her skin made contact, a surge of power rushed through her body, nearly knocking her off her feet. The wand grew warm, vibrating slightly, and emitted a shower of purple and silver sparks. "It recognizes you," Harry said softly. Daphne nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The wand felt alive in her hand, an extension of herself she hadn't known was missing until this moment. "Lumos," she whispered, and the wand tip ignited with a light so bright it illuminated the entire chamber like daylight. "Nox," she added hastily, and the light extinguished immediately. "That's definitely more powerful than a regular wand," Harry observed. "Try something else." Daphne pointed the wand at a small rock on the floor. "Wingardium Leviosa." The rock shot toward the ceiling with such force it shattered against the stone. They both ducked as fragments rained down. "Needs some control," she admitted. "You'll learn," Harry said confidently. "It just needs," a distant scream interrupted him, Hermione's voice, coming from above. They raced back up the stairs to find the chamber entrance blocked by Arcturus Montague and 2 men in plain black robes. Hermione lay on the floor, stunned. "Miss Greengrass," Montague smiled coldly. How kind of you to save me the trouble of searching for the wand myself. Daphne raised the blackthorn wand, but one of Montague's men flicked his own wand, and hers flew from her grasp into his hand. Ancient artifacts require careful handling, Montague said, taking the wand from his assistant. The Department of Mysteries will ensure it's properly studied. That's theft, Harry said angrily, his own wand aimed at Montague. The wand belongs to Daphne. Expelliarmus, the second assistant said almost lazily, and Harry's wand soared away. Do control your pet Gryffindor, Miss Greengrass. How did you find us? Daphne demanded. You can thank your housemate for that. Montague smiled. Mr. Malfoy has proven quite useful to the Ministry's interests. Malfoy. Of course. He must have followed them or heard something from Tracy. The wand won't work for you, Daphne said desperately. It's bound to Morgana's bloodline. Oh, we're well aware of the limitations. Montague examined the wand with hungry eyes. But blood can be extracted. Used as a catalyst. The implication turned Daphne's blood cold. They wanted to use her blood to activate the wand, which meant they needed her alive, but not necessarily willing. Voldemort's back, Harry said suddenly. Is this really your priority right now? Stealing artifacts while he rebuilds his army? The Dark Lord's return is precisely why we need these artifacts, Potter. Montague's voice hardened. The Ministry must have every advantage at its disposal. You're fools if you think you can control this power, Daphne spat. Perhaps. But we'll certainly try. Montague gestured to his men. Secure Miss Greengrass. We'll need to transfer her to the department for further cooperation. The men advanced, but before they could reach her, Harry moved. Without a wand, he launched himself physically at the nearest assistant, knocking him sideways. The man's wand clattered to the floor, and Daphne dove for it. Chaos erupted. Montague fired a spell that Harry barely dodged. The second assistant aimed at Daphne, but she was faster, snatching the fallen wand and shouting, Protego. The shield charm exploded outward with far more force than she intended, slamming the assistant against the wall with a sickening crack. He slumped, unconscious or worse. Accio Blackthorn Wand. Daphne cried, and to her surprise, the wand tore itself from Montague's grasp and flew to her hand. The moment she held both wands, something strange happened. Power surged through her, stronger than before, and the chamber's floating orbs flared blindingly bright. Get down, she shouted to Harry, who dropped to the floor beside Hermione's still form. Acting on instinct, Daphne crossed the wands and cried out a word she didn't recognize, hadn't studied, but somehow knew, repellum. A wave of pure force erupted from the crossed wands, rippling visibly through the air like heat haze. It struck Montague and his remaining assistant, lifting them off their feet and hurling them back through the chamber entrance. They landed in a heap in the corridor beyond, clearly dazed. Harry scrambled to his feet, grabbing his own wand where it had fallen. Colloportus, he shouted, sealing the chamber entrance temporarily. That won't hold them long, he panted, turning to revive Hermione with a quick renervate. She stirred, groaning. What happened? Montague, Daphne explained tersely. We need to get out of here. Now. There's another exit, Hermione said, struggling to her feet. All the Founders' chambers had secondary exits in case of siege. This one must too. Check the walls, Harry suggested. Look for another Ouroboros or something similar. They split up, searching frantically as Montague's voice came from beyond the sealed entrance, casting increasingly powerful unlocking spells. Here. Hermione called, pointing to a small carving of a crescent moon nearly hidden behind a stone bench. This has to be it. Daphne pressed her hand against it, willing it to open as she had with the main entrance. Nothing happened. Try the wand, Harry suggested urgently. She touched the blackthorn wand to the carving, and immediately the stone shifted, revealing a narrow tunnel. Go. she urged Hermione, who lit her wand and entered first. Harry followed, with Daphne bringing up the rear just as the sealed entrance exploded inward with a deafening boom. They raced through the tunnel, which sloped gradually upward. After what seemed like an eternity, they emerged behind a tapestry on the first floor, not far from the Great Hall. "We need to split up," Harry said quickly. "Montague will be looking for all of us together." "What about the wand?" Hermione asked, looking at the blackthorn wand still clutched in Daphne's hand. "I need to hide it somewhere they won't look," Daphne realized. "Somewhere not connected to me." "I know a place," Harry said. "The room of requirement can become a storage room where things are hidden. Thousands of objects, accumulated over centuries. No one could find it there unless they knew exactly what they were looking for." "Brilliant," Daphne agreed. "Let's go." They made their way cautiously to the 7th floor, Harry consulting the Marauder's map to avoid patrols. The castle was in an uproar, with teachers and prefects rushing about, apparently responding to some emergency, likely Montague's doing. "He's calling it a student attack," Hermione guessed. "Claiming we assaulted ministry officials." "Technically, we did," Harry pointed out. "They attacked first," Daphne argued. "And they were trying to kidnap me." They reached the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy, and Harry paced 3 times, concentrating hard. A door appeared, and they slipped inside to find an enormous cathedral-like room filled with towering piles of discarded objects. "This is incredible," Daphne breathed, staring at centuries' worth of hidden contraband. "It's called the Room of Hidden Things," Harry explained. "Find somewhere that feels right." Daphne moved deeper into the room, letting instinct guide her. The blackthorn wand seemed to warm in her hand as she approached a particular section filled with old books and broken furniture. "Here," she decided, spotting a tarnished silver box with Celtic knotwork on the lid. She opened it, finding it lined with faded velvet. Perfect. As she placed the wand inside, she hesitated. "I should cast a protection spell. Something that will allow only me to retrieve it." "Blood magic again?" Harry asked, looking resigned. "It's the most effective." She pricked her finger with a whispered spell and let a drop fall onto the wand. "Sanguinum meum solum apparit," she murmured. "My blood alone opens it." The drop of blood seemed to absorb into the wood, and the wand glowed briefly before returning to normal. Daphne closed the box and wedged it behind a stack of ancient textbooks, memorizing the location. "Done," she said, turning back to Harry and Hermione. "Now what?" "Now we face the music," Hermione said grimly. "Umbridge will be looking for us, and we need an alibi." "I'll say we were in the library studying," Harry suggested. "We can claim we left when we heard the commotion." "That won't work for me," Daphne pointed out. "I'm supposed to be fasting, remember? I wouldn't be in the library." "The hospital wing, then," Hermione decided. "You felt faint from not eating and went there. Harry and I were visiting you when everything happened. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best they could do under the circumstances." They agreed on the story and slipped out of the room of requirement, heading separate ways to make their appearances in public places before converging at the hospital wing. Daphne had just reached the main staircase when a voice stopped her cold. "Miss Greengrass." She turned slowly to find Professor Snape standing there, his dark eyes unreadable. "Professor," she acknowledged, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The headmistress is looking for you," he said silkily. "Something about an attack on ministry officials. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" "No, sir," she lied. "I was feeling unwell and was heading to the hospital wing." Snape studied her for a long moment. "Indeed. How convenient." She said nothing, heart hammering against her ribs. "Mr. Montague is currently in the hospital wing himself," Snape continued. "Being treated for injuries sustained in what he describes as an unprovoked magical assault by you, Potter, and Miss Granger." "That's not what happened," Daphne said before she could stop herself. Snape's eyebrow rose. So you do know something about it. Trapped, Daphne made a split-second decision. He attacked us, Professor. He was trying to force me to go with him to the Department of Mysteries. He said they needed my blood. Something flickered in Snape's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or concern. A serious accusation against a ministry official. It's the truth. She met his gaze steadily. After what felt like an eternity, Snape spoke again, his voice lowered. The hospital wing is currently inaccessible for you. I suggest you return to your dormitory immediately and remain there until summoned. Was he helping her? Professor? Do not make me repeat myself, Miss Greengrass. His tone hardened. And in the future, perhaps consider that not all battles can be won through direct confrontation. Slytherin cunning exists for a reason. With that cryptic statement, he swept away, leaving Daphne stunned in his wake. She hurried to the Slytherin dormitories, slipping past the common room where excited discussions about the night's events were already underway. In her room, she found Tracy waiting, her expression anxious. There you are. Everyone's saying you attacked some ministry officials. Aurors are in the castle. What happened? Not now, Tracy, Daphne said wearily, collapsing onto her bed. Not now. Daphne, this is serious. They're talking about expulsion, maybe even Azkaban. They won't expel me, Daphne said with more confidence than she felt. Montague needs me alive and at Hogwarts where he can get to me. What are you talking about? Why would he need you? Daphne closed her eyes. Because I'm something he wants to control. Something powerful. You're not making any sense. I know. She rolled onto her side, facing away from her friend. I'm sorry I can't explain better right now. Just, trust that I had my reasons. Tracy was silent for a long moment. Malfoy told Montague where you were going tonight. Daphne turned back. How do you know? I overheard him bragging to Pansy. He said, the Ice Queen will melt when the ministry finishes with her. He seemed to think he'd done something clever. He has no idea what he's involved himself in, Daphne said darkly. That's what scares me, Tracy admitted. Neither do you. Sleep was impossible that night. Daphne lay awake, replaying the events in the chamber. The ritual had worked, she'd found the Blackthorn wand and felt its power. But she'd also made an enemy of Arcturus Montague, a man with the full resources of the ministry behind him. And somewhere out there, the other two artifacts remained hidden, the Dagger of Souls and the Heart of Avalon. If Montague knew about the wand, he likely knew about them as well. Dawn was breaking when a house elf appeared beside her bed with a note. Headmistress's office. Immediately. Alone. The reckoning had arrived. Umbridge's office was packed. Umbridge herself sat behind the desk, looking triumphant. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, stood beside her. Arcturus Montague sat in a chair, his arm in a sling, his remaining assistant standing grimly behind him. Two Aurors flanked the door. And to Daphne's surprise, her father stood near the window, his aristocratic features set in a cold mask. Miss Greengrass, Umbridge simpered. How good of you to join us. Daphne said nothing, focusing on keeping her expression neutral despite the fear churning in her stomach. Do you know why you're here? Fudge demanded. I assume it's related to last night's events, she replied carefully. Events. Montague spat. Is that what you call a vicious assault on ministry personnel? My man Dawlish may never fully recover. Your men attacked my friends and attempted to abduct me, Daphne countered. We defended ourselves. An outrageous lie, Umbridge said sweetly. Mr. Montague was conducting an official investigation into prohibited artifacts when you, Potter, and Granger attacked him without provocation. What prohibited artifacts? Daphne's father spoke for the first time. My daughter is not known to traffic in illegal items. The artifacts in question are ancient and highly dangerous, Fudge explained. Family heirlooms, perhaps, but still subject to ministry regulation. I see. Hyperion Greengrass turned to his daughter. Is this true, Daphne? She met her father's gaze steadily. I discovered something that belongs to our family by right of blood. Mr. Montague attempted to take it by force. The Blackthorn wand, Montague said, watching her father's reaction closely. One of Morgana Le Fay's artifacts. Your daughter is her heir, though I suspect you already knew that. A muscle twitched in Hyperion's jaw, the only sign of his surprise. I see. The ministry cannot allow such dangerous artifacts to remain in private hands, Fudge blustered. Especially given the current climate. You mean Voldemort's return? Daphne asked innocently, enjoying the collective flinch her words produced. That is exactly the kind of irresponsible rumor-mongering that led to this situation. Umbridge said shrilly. Potter has clearly corrupted you with his lies. The wand is gone, Daphne said, ignoring Umbridge. Hidden where you'll never find it. And the other artifacts remain safely concealed as well. Other artifacts? Hyperion asked sharply. The triad of power, Montague explained, his eyes never leaving Daphne. The Blackthorn wand, the dagger of souls, and the heart of Avalon. Together, they grant the wielder power beyond imagining. Quite the bedtime story, Hyperion said dryly. Minister, what exactly do you intend to do with my daughter? Fudge cleared his throat. Given the seriousness of the assault, self-defense, Daphne interjected. We would be within our rights to press criminal charges. However, in light of her age and special status, we're prepared to be lenient. How magnanimous, Hyperion drawled. And what form will this leniency take? Miss Greengrass will assist the Department of Mysteries in locating the remaining artifacts, Montague said. Under supervision, of course. You mean captivity, Daphne translated. You would be a valued consultant, Montague insisted. With access to resources to help control your developing abilities. And if I refuse? Then we would need to re-evaluate the criminal charges, Fudge said. Assault on ministry officials carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in Azkaban. Hyperion stepped forward. Minister, while I appreciate your concern for my family's artifacts, I must insist on consulting with our solicitors before any agreements are made. This is not a negotiation, Greengrass, Montague said coldly. Your daughter possesses abilities that pose a potential threat to wizarding security. My daughter is a minor under my protection, Hyperion countered, equally cold. And the Greengrass family has enough influence with the Wisindamat to make any hasty actions on your part extremely uncomfortable. The threat hung in the air. Fudge, ever sensitive to political winds, shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we are being hasty. A cooling-off period might be beneficial to all parties. Minister. Umbridge protested. A week, Fudge decided. Miss Greengrass will remain at Hogwarts under supervision. No contact with Potter or Granger. After that, we'll reconvene to discuss arrangements for her cooperation. And the assault charges? Hyperion pressed. Pending the outcome of our discussions. Daphne could hardly believe it. Her father, who had been largely absent from her life for years, was effectively using his political capital to shield her. Acceptable, Hyperion nodded. I'll expect regular reports on my daughter's well-being, Dolores. Of course, Umbridge simpered, though her eyes remained hard. As they left the office, Hyperion placed a hand on Daphne's shoulder, guiding her away from listening ears. Your grandmother warned me this might happen, he said quietly. Though I admit I doubted her. You knew? Daphne asked, stunned. Not the details. Just that our bloodline carried certain responsibilities. Your grandmother believed you were the one. He sighed. I had hoped she was wrong. I'm not sorry, Daphne said defiantly. The wand belongs with me. It's my heritage. Heritage is a complicated gift, Daphne. His eyes, so like her own, studied her face. It often comes with a price. I'm willing to pay it. A rare smile touched his lips. So like your grandmother. Stubborn as stone. The smile faded. I've bought you time, but not much. The ministry will not give up easily. Neither will the Dark Lord, once he learns what you are. What should I do? For the first time, Daphne allowed her uncertainty to show. Trust no one completely, he advised. Not even me. But know that I will do what I can to protect you, within limits. Within limits, she repeated, understanding the qualification. Hyperion Greengrass was a political survivor who maintained his family's neutrality through careful calculation. He would help her, but not at the cost of the family's overall security. I'll have your grandmother contact you directly, he said. She understands these matters better than I. With that, he nodded formally and departed, leaving Daphne to face the curious stares of students who had gathered in the corridor during her meeting. News of the confrontation spread through Hogwarts like wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone knew that Daphne Greengrass, Harry Potter, and Hermione Granger had supposedly attacked ministry officials and were facing possible expulsion. The Slytherin table fell silent when Daphne entered the Great Hall. She held her head high, ignoring the whispers and stares as she took a seat at the far end, away from her housemates. To her surprise, Blaise Zabini joined her a moment later, sliding gracefully onto the bench opposite. Quite the scandal you've created, he remarked, serving himself roast beef. Assaulting ministry officials. Very un-Slytherin of you. I prefer to think of it as taking direct action to protect my interests, she replied. Very Slytherin, actually. He chuckled. A fair point. His voice lowered. Is it true what they're saying? That you're descended from Morgana Le Fay? Daphne studied him carefully. Where did you hear that? People talk. Especially when they think no one important is listening. He buttered a roll with practiced ease. My family has our own, unusual ancestry. I understand the challenges that can bring. What exactly are you offering, Blaise? Alliance, he said simply. You're isolated within Slytherin now. That's dangerous, especially with Montague watching your every move. And what do you get from this alliance? His smile was enigmatic. Let's just say I'm interested in history. Particularly the parts the ministry would rather we forget. Before she could respond, an origami bird fluttered down onto her plate. She unfolded it cautiously. Roar. 8 p.m. Tell no one. She glanced across the hall to where Harry sat with the Gryffindors. He didn't look her way, but she knew the note came from him. Secret admirer? Blaise asked, eyebrow raised. Something like that, she murmured, tucking the note away. That evening, evading the watchful eyes of the inquisitorial squad, Daphne made her way to the 7th floor. The room of requirement appeared at her approach, and she slipped inside to find Harry waiting alone. Where's Granger? She asked, surprised. Serving detention with Umbridge. His face darkened. She took the fall for all of us. Claimed she led us into the dungeons looking for potion ingredients. That was brave of her. It's Hermione. He shrugged, as if that explained everything. How did you get away with your father showing up? Political connections, Daphne explained. He bought us a week before they decide what to do with me. A week isn't much time. It's better than nothing. She sank into a chair the room had provided. They know about all 3 artifacts now. Montague mentioned them by name. So what's the plan? Harry perched on the arm of a nearby sofa. We can't let the ministry get those artifacts. And we definitely can't let Voldemort find out about them. We need to find the other 2 first, Daphne decided. The grimoire said the Dagger of Souls is hidden where water meets stone, to the north. And the heart of Avalon is in the west, guarded by those Morgana saved from Merlin's purge. Not exactly detailed directions, Harry observed. No, but... Daphne hesitated, remembering something. The grimoire mentioned a map hidden within it. A map that only the true heir could see. Like the Marauder's map, but activated by blood? Possibly. She frowned. The grimoire is still in my dormitory. I can't risk examining it there, not with the other Slytherin girls watching me. Bring it here tomorrow night, Harry suggested. This room can provide whatever we need to study it safely. I can't be seen with you, remember? Fudge's orders. Since when do you follow orders? Harry grinned. Besides, I have an invisibility cloak. Despite the dire situation, Daphne found herself smiling back. You're a terrible influence, Potter. Harry, he corrected automatically. Harry, she agreed softly. Something in the air between them changed, a tension that hadn't been there before. Daphne became acutely aware of how alone they were, how close he sat, how his green eyes seemed to catch the light. You know, he said, voice lower than before, we never talked about the ritual. About the bond it created. What about it? She asked, suddenly breathless. I can feel it, he admitted. Like a thread connecting us. Can you? She nodded, unable to deny it. Since the ritual, she'd been aware of him in a way that defied explanation, a subtle pull, an awareness of his presence even when she couldn't see him. What does it mean? She asked. I don't know. He moved closer, now sitting beside her rather than across from her. But I don't think it's a coincidence. You and me, finding each other now, when everything else is falling apart. I thought you didn't believe in destiny, she said, remembering an earlier conversation. I don't, he agreed. But I believe in making choices. And I choose to trust you, Daphne Greengrass. His hand found hers, warm and surprisingly calloused from Quidditch. She didn't pull away. I choose to trust you too, Harry Potter, she whispered. Merlin help me. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Part of her wanted him to. But he simply squeezed her hand and stood, breaking the moment. Tomorrow night, then. Bring the grimoire. We'll figure this out together. She nodded, throat too tight for words. As she slipped back to the Slytherin dormitory, avoiding patrols with skills honed by years of midnight wanderings, Daphne couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. Not just because of Morgana's legacy or Montague's threats, but because of the boy with green eyes who had somehow become the person she trusted most in the world. An unlikely alliance indeed, the heir of Morgana and the boy who lived. But perhaps that was exactly what they both needed to survive what was coming. Chapter 3, Blood and Choice. Daphne slipped through the Slytherin common room at dawn, the grimoire hidden under her robes. 3 days had passed since the confrontation with Montague. 3 days of being watched, whispered about, and isolated. The inquisitorial squad followed her everywhere, Umbridge's eyes narrowed whenever she entered a room, and her fellow Slytherins treated her like she carried dragonpox. Only Blaise Zabini still spoke to her publicly, an alliance that drew suspicious glares from Malfoy's crowd but provided crucial intelligence on Montague's movements. He's bringing in reinforcements, Blaise had whispered during potions the previous day. 2 more unspeakables arrived last night. They're searching the castle systematically. Now Daphne hurried to the abandoned classroom on the 3rd floor where Harry waited under his invisibility cloak. They'd established the meeting spot after determining it was one of the few places not regularly patrolled. They're getting closer to finding the Chamber of Whispers, she said without preamble as she closed the door behind her. We need to move faster. Harry appeared, removing his cloak. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, matching her own. Any luck with the grimoire? Nothing yet. I've tried everything I can think of to reveal hidden content. She pulled out the ancient book, placing it on a dusty desk. Blood, magical revealing spells, even tried reading it backward. Maybe we're overthinking this. Harry ran a hand through his already messy hair. When I first got the Marauder's map, I didn't know how to use it either. The twins told me to try saying "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good" while tapping it with my wand. A passphrase? Daphne considered the idea. But what would Morgana have used? Something only her heir would know. Something from your dreams, maybe? Harry suggested. You said she communicated with you before you even found the chamber. Daphne closed her eyes, recalling the recurring dreams that had started this whole journey. The blood awakens. The time approaches. Nothing happened. Try touching the book while you say it, Harry urged. She placed her palm flat on the grimoire's cover. The blood awakens. The time approaches. The book remained inert. Wait. Daphne remembered something else from her dreams. She called me "blood of my blood." As she spoke the words with her hand still on the book, a shiver ran through her palm. The grimoire warmed beneath her touch, and when she opened it, the normally blank final pages now contained an intricate map. It worked. Harry leaned in close, his shoulder pressing against hers as they studied the newly revealed content. The map showed Hogwarts and the surrounding lands, but with differences from the modern landscape. Ancient paths wound through the forbidden forest, and structures long vanished were marked clearly. 2 locations pulsed with faint light, one in the mountains north of Hogsmeade, the other on an island in a lake to the west. Where water meets stone to the north, Daphne murmured, pointing to the mountain location. That must be where the Dagger of Souls is hidden. And this island? Harry traced the western point. Could be the home of those Morgana saved from Merlin's purge. Additional text appeared at the bottom of the page as they watched, flowing across the parchment in elegant script. The dagger guards itself through trials 3, of courage, wisdom, and sacrifice. Only the worthy may claim it. The heart lies among the Fey folk, hidden by enchantment from mortal eyes. Speak my name at the shore of tears, and the way shall reveal itself. Fey folk. Harry looked puzzled. Like fairies? Not exactly. Daphne's mind raced through half-remembered stories her grandmother had told her. The old tales speak of more powerful beings, closer to what Muggles might call elves, but not like house elves. Magic folk who retreated from the wizarding world during Merlin's time. And Morgana protected them, Harry concluded. That's who guards the heart of Avalon. It makes sense. According to the grimoire, Merlin wanted to eliminate all magic he couldn't control. The Fae would have been prime targets. A noise in the corridor outside made them both freeze. Footsteps approached, then passed. We can't stay here, Harry whispered. It's too risky. We need to get these artifacts before Montague does, Daphne said urgently. The map shows the locations, but they're both outside Hogwarts. How do we get there without being caught? Harry grinned suddenly. I know just the people to help us with that. 2 hours later, Daphne found herself in an unlikely meeting with Fred and George Weasley, huddled in the secret passage behind the one-eyed witch statue. Let me get this straight, Fred said, eyes gleaming with mischief. You need to sneak out of the most heavily guarded Hogwarts in history, past Umbridge, Filch, the Inquisitorial Squad, and a team of Ministry officials, George continued. To hunt for ancient magical artifacts before the bad guys find them? Fred finished. Pretty much, Harry confirmed. The twins exchanged identical grins. Wicked. Can you help us or not? Daphne asked impatiently. Time was running out, and consorting with Weasleys wasn't exactly keeping a low profile. Absolutely, George assured her. But it'll require a distraction. A big one. How big? Harry asked cautiously. Let's just say, Fred lowered his voice dramatically, we've been saving something special for the right moment. And this is definitely that moment, George agreed. Tomorrow night. The whole East Wing will be effectively unavailable to authority figures. What exactly are you planning? Daphne asked suspiciously. Plausible deniability, Greengrass, Fred winked. Just be ready to move at 8 o'clock sharp. As the twins departed, Daphne turned to Harry. Can we trust them? With this? Absolutely. Harry looked confident. Creating magical chaos is practically their specialty. Then we need to prepare. The northern location is closer, that should be our first target. She studied the map again. It looks like a cave system in these mountains. We'll need supplies. I'll handle that, Harry promised. Hermione can help, she's recovered enough from detention to join us. We should limit how many people we involve, Daphne cautioned. Montague already suspects you and Granger. We need her, Harry insisted. She's the best researcher we have, and she's already involved. Daphne couldn't argue with that logic. Fine. But no one else. What about Zabini? Harry asked. He's been helping you, right? Blaise has his own agenda, she said carefully. I trust his information, but not his motives yet. They parted ways with plans to meet the following evening, Harry returning to Gryffindor Tower while Daphne headed reluctantly back to the dungeons. She was halfway to the common room when a hand closed around her arm, pulling her into an alcove. She reached for her wand, but stopped when she recognized Blaise's face in the dim light. Don't go back to the dormitory, he said without preamble. Montague's men are waiting for you there. Umbridge signed an order for your protective custody 10 minutes ago. What? Daphne felt cold wash through her. How do you know? Pansy was bragging about it to Draco. She helped them get into the girls' dormitory. His dark eyes were serious. They're not planning to give you to the Department of Mysteries, Daphne. Someone else has taken an interest in Morgana's heir. Voldemort, she whispered, the pieces falling into place. Montague's working for him, not the Ministry. I didn't say that, Blaise replied carefully. But you should probably accelerate whatever plans you've made with Potter. Why are you helping me? She demanded. What's your angle in all this? Something like regret crossed his handsome features. Let's just say I understand what it's like when others want to exploit your heritage. He checked his watch. The passage behind the mirror on the 4th floor. It's still accessible despite what everyone thinks. Go there now. I'll create a distraction to cover your absence tonight. Before she could thank him, he was gone, moving silently through the shadows. Daphne didn't hesitate. She headed straight for the 4th floor, finding the cracked mirror that concealed the secret passage Fred and George had once mentioned. Inside, she found a long, dusty corridor that appeared to lead toward Hogsmeade, though she didn't follow it to its end. Instead, she settled in a relatively clean corner and tried to think. Her situation had just deteriorated from bad to disastrous. If Voldemort was now involved, seeking Morgana's artifacts and her blood to activate them, the danger had escalated beyond what even Harry might understand. She needed to warn him, but how? She couldn't risk sending an owl or leaving her hiding place. The answer came to her suddenly, the blood bond created during the ritual for the Blackthorn wand. Harry had mentioned feeling a connection to her. Perhaps it worked both ways. Closing her eyes, Daphne focused on that tenuous thread between them, imagining it strengthening, carrying her thoughts to Harry. Danger. Voldemort knows. Montague betrayed the Ministry. Find me in the mirror passage on the 4th floor. She repeated the message mentally until her head ached with the effort, then waited, hoping against hope that the bond was strong enough to transmit her warning. Hours passed. Daphne dozed fitfully against the stone wall, jolting awake at every small sound. Had her message reached Harry? Or was he even now walking into a trap set by Umbridge and Montague? Just as she was losing hope, the passage entrance shifted. Daphne raised her wand, ready to defend herself, but it was Harry who appeared, clutching his invisibility cloak and looking frantic. Daphne. He rushed to her side. Are you okay? I felt I don't know, like you were calling me. It woke me up from a dead sleep. It worked, she breathed, relief washing through her. The blood bond. I tried to send you a message. What happened? He settled beside her, so close their shoulders touched. She explained quickly about Blaze's warning and the implications of Voldemort's interest in Morgana's artifacts. This changes everything, Harry said grimly. If Voldemort gets these artifacts. The dagger can sever souls, Daphne reminded him. The heart provides protection against all magical attacks. And the wand channels power without restriction. Together, they could make him truly unstoppable. We need to move now, not tomorrow, Harry decided. Fred and George can still help. Their distraction will just need to happen sooner. How do we contact them? Harry produced a small golden coin from his pocket. DA galleons. Hermione enchanted them to transmit messages. I've already sent word to her and the twins. Clever, Daphne acknowledged. But even with a distraction, how do we get to the mountains? It's too far to walk, and we're not experienced enough to apparate. Brooms, Harry said simply. I've got my firebolt, and we can borrow another from the Quidditch shed. In case you've forgotten, the entire Inquisitorial squad is looking for me, not to mention Montague's Unspeakables and possibly Death Eaters, she pointed out. We can't just stroll across the grounds to the Quidditch pitch. We won't have to. Harry grinned. Just wait. Less than 30 minutes later, the distant sound of explosions rocked the castle. Harry peered out from their hiding place. Fred and George have outdone themselves, he reported, watching as what appeared to be an entire indoor swamp materialized in the corridor, complete with flying fireworks shaped like dragons that pursued screaming Inquisitorial squad members. Everyone's distracted. Now's our chance. Under the invisibility cloak, they navigated through the chaos. Students ran in all directions, prefects shouted conflicting instructions, and Filch could be seen tearfully trying to scoop swamp water with a leaky bucket. Umbridge's outraged screams echoed from somewhere near the Great Hall. They reached the entrance hall undetected, then slipped outside into the twilight. Harry led Daphne not toward the Quidditch pitch as she'd expected, but to Hagrid's empty hut. He's away on order business, Harry explained, pulling 2 brooms from beneath the gamekeeper's bed. I asked him to keep these here before he left. Just in case. You've been planning an escape route, Daphne realized. With Umbridge in charge. Always. He handed her one of the brooms, an older but well-maintained clean sweep. Hermione should be meeting us by the edge of the forest with supplies. Sure enough, a bushy-haired figure waited anxiously at the tree line, clutching a bulging backpack. You're both insane, Hermione hissed as they approached. The entire castle's in an uproar. Umbridge is threatening to suspend all students. Perfect timing, then, Harry said, taking the backpack. What did you bring? Everything I could think of, Hermione replied. Food, water, healing potions, warm clothes, magical reference books on northern Scotland. You're not coming? Daphne asked, surprised. Hermione shook her head. Someone needs to stay behind as a contact point. Besides, I'm hopeless on a broom. I'd only slow you down. Thank you, Daphne said sincerely. For helping me even though you're a Slytherin. Hermione finished with a small smile. Harry trusts you. That's enough for me. She turned serious. Be careful, both of you. From what I've found, the area you're headed to has a history of powerful protective enchantments. The locals avoid it completely. We'll be careful, Harry promised, hugging her briefly. Keep the DA galleon with you. We'll contact you when we find the dagger. Moments later, they were airborne, soaring over the forbidden forest toward the distant mountains north of Hogsmeade. The evening air was cold against Daphne's face as she followed Harry's lead, staying low over the treetops to avoid detection. How good are you on a broom? Harry called back over his shoulder. Good enough, she replied, though the truth was she rarely flew. The Greengrass family didn't exactly encourage their daughters toward Quidditch. Harry slowed slightly, allowing her to pull alongside him. The map showed the cave entrance about halfway up the northern face of that tallest peak, he said, pointing ahead. We should reach it in about 20 minutes. Assuming it's still accessible after 1,000 years, Daphne pointed out. If it's protected by magic like Morgana's chamber, it should be, Harry reasoned. Those kinds of enchantments don't fail with time if they're tied to bloodlines. As they flew, Daphne found herself watching Harry instead of the terrain. He flew with effortless grace, his body working in perfect harmony with the broom. The wind tousled his already messy hair, and despite the danger they faced, he looked more alive than she'd ever seen him. For the first time, she understood why half the girls at Hogwarts harbored secret crushes on him, despite his perpetual state of dishevelment and trouble. There was something magnetic about Harry Potter when he was in his element. What? He asked, catching her staring. Nothing, she replied quickly, focusing ahead. Just making sure you know where we're going. He grinned like he didn't believe her but said nothing more. The mountains loomed larger as they approached, jagged peaks silhouetted against the darkening sky. Harry led them toward a particularly forbidding face of sheer rock, circling cautiously as they searched for the cave entrance. There. Daphne pointed to a dark horizontal slit about halfway up the cliff. It matches the map. They landed on a narrow ledge outside the cave entrance, dismounting carefully. The opening was barely tall enough to walk through, forcing them to duck as they entered, wands lit to illuminate the darkness beyond. The passage extended deep into the mountain, twisting downward in a spiral path. The air grew colder as they descended, their breath fogging in front of them. Stay close, Harry murmured. And watch for traps. They moved cautiously, testing each step before committing their weight. The tunnel eventually opened into a vast underground cavern with a still, black lake at its center. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like frozen daggers, reflecting their wand-light in eerie patterns. The dagger guards itself through trials 3, Daphne recited from memory. Of courage, wisdom, and sacrifice. Only the worthy may claim it. So where do we start? Harry asked, scanning the cavern. His question was answered by a sudden rumbling from the lake. The black water bubbled and churned, then parted to reveal a stone pedestal rising from the depths. Atop it rested a silver box, similar to the one Daphne had used to hide the blackthorn wand. That was easy, Harry said suspiciously. Too easy, Daphne agreed. The trials must guard the box itself. They approached the edge of the lake cautiously. No obvious path led to the pedestal, which stood at least 30 feet from the shore. I could try to summon it, Harry suggested, raising his wand. Wait, Daphne grabbed his arm. The trials are of courage, wisdom, and sacrifice. Summoning would bypass them. So what? That's the smart approach. No, it's cheating. Daphne studied the cavern more carefully. Morgana wouldn't have made the trials impossible, just difficult. There must be a way across. As if responding to her words, a single stepping stone emerged from the water, followed by another, and another, forming a winding path to the pedestal. Well, that's obvious, Harry muttered. Except. The stones were impossibly small, barely large enough for a single foot, and spaced at awkward intervals. One misstep would mean plunging into the black water. The trial of courage, Daphne realized. We have to cross without magic. Harry pocketed his wand. I'll go first. No, I should, you're the heir, he interrupted. If something happens to you, this whole quest is pointless. Let me test it. Before she could argue further, he stepped onto the first stone, balancing precariously. The stone held his weight, and he moved to the second, then the third, his Quidditch-honed reflexes serving him well. Halfway across, one of the stones wobbled beneath his foot. Harry windmilled his arms, nearly falling before regaining his balance. Careful. Daphne called, her heart in her throat. He flashed her a quick grin over his shoulder. Never a dull moment with you, Greengrass. Stone by stone, he made his way to the pedestal. When he reached it, the path remained stable instead of sinking back into the water. Come on, he called. It's safe. Well, safe-ish. Daphne took a deep breath and followed, placing each foot with deliberate precision. The black water beneath the stones was unnervingly still, reflecting her face like a dark mirror. She forced herself not to look down after the first few steps. When she finally reached the pedestal, Harry caught her arm to steady her. Trial 1 complete, he said. Now for the box. The silver box was intricately engraved with runes that shifted and changed as they watched. Can you read them? Harry asked. Daphne squinted at the moving symbols. They're ancient. Pre-Hogwarts. But I think, yes, they're forming a riddle. The runes stabilized into a pattern she could just barely decipher. I am found in the dark but made by the light, I am known to all but seen by none, I follow forever but lead for a night, what am I? The trial of wisdom, Harry murmured. A riddle. They pondered in silence for several moments. Daphne's mind raced through possibilities, darkness, shadows, stars. A shadow, Harry suggested. It's found in dark places but created by light. But shadows can be seen, Daphne countered. And they don't lead, they follow. More silence. The cavern felt oppressive now, the weight of the mountain above them almost tangible. Wait, Daphne said suddenly. Known to all but seen by none, follows forever but leads for a night, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow. Think about it. Tomorrow is always ahead of us, something we know exists but can never actually see or touch. It follows us through life, always coming but never here. And sometimes, just the idea of tomorrow, of things getting better, leads us through dark times. Harry blinked. That's, actually brilliant. Daphne placed her hand on the box and said clearly, tomorrow. The box clicked open, revealing, another box inside, this one made of dark wood. Seriously? Harry groaned. A box within a box. The trial of sacrifice, Daphne reminded him. We still have one more test. The wooden box bore no riddle, just a small depression in its center shaped like a teardrop. Blood sacrifice, Harry guessed. Like the grimoire and the chamber entrance. Daphne nodded. The question is, whose blood? Mine as the heir, or? Both of us, Harry said with certainty. The bond we created for the Blackthorn wand, I think Morgana would have expected her heir to find an ally, someone willing to share the burden. You might be right. Daphne produced a small silver knife from her pocket, she'd come prepared this time. Together, then. They each pricked a finger, letting their blood mingle in the teardrop depression. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blood seemed to absorb into the wood, and the box sprang open. Inside lay the dagger of souls, an exquisite blade about 10 inches long, its handle crafted from clear crystal that caught and refracted their wandlight in rainbow patterns. The silver blade itself was etched with the same type of runes that had appeared on the outer box. It's beautiful, Daphne whispered, reaching for it. Wait, Harry cautioned. The grimoire said it severs souls from bodies. That sounds dangerously close to a Horcrux-related artifact. A what? Never mind. Just, be careful. Daphne touched the dagger cautiously. Unlike the Blackthorn wand, it didn't produce an immediate magical reaction, but she felt a subtle connection to it nonetheless, a recognition, as if it knew her bloodline. I think it's safe, she said, carefully lifting it from the box. For me, at least. As soon as she held the dagger, the pedestal began to sink back into the lake. The stepping stones disappeared one by one, leaving them stranded. Now what? Harry asked, looking around for an exit. In answer, a new passage opened in the cavern wall behind the pedestal, leading upward. That way, Daphne pointed, tucking the dagger securely into her robes. The new tunnel climbed steeply, eventually emerging halfway up the opposite side of the mountain from where they'd entered. Night had fully fallen, stars glittering in the clear sky above the peaks. 2 down, 1 to go, Harry said as they remounted their brooms. The heart of Avalon is next. It's too far to reach tonight, Daphne pointed out, consulting the map by wandlight. The western location is near the coast, we'd have to fly over 100 miles. We could apparate, Harry suggested. I've done side-along before. Neither of us has a license, and the risk of splinching over that distance is too high. Daphne thought for a moment. We need somewhere safe to rest tonight. Somewhere Montague won't think to look. Harry considered. I know a place in Hogsmeade, but it's risky. Umbridge will have alerted the village by now. What about the Shrieking Shack? Daphne suggested. It's isolated, and everyone thinks it's haunted. Harry looked surprised. How do you know about the tunnel to the shack? I've seen you and your friends disappear toward the Whomping Willow often enough, she replied with a smirk. Slytherins notice things. Fair enough, he conceded. The shack it is. They flew cautiously, staying high above the treetops until they reached the outskirts of Hogsmeade. Landing in a secluded spot near the Shrieking Shack, they approached on foot, Harry leading the way through an overgrown path to a boarded-up door. Alohomora, he whispered, and the door creaked open. Inside, the shack lived up to its reputation. Dust-covered furniture, torn curtains, and deeply scratched walls created an eerie atmosphere in the wandlight. But it was dry and, most importantly, hidden from searching eyes. Home sweet home, Harry said wryly, clearing dust from a tattered sofa with a quick cleaning spell. At least for tonight. Daphne removed the dagger of souls from her robes, examining it more closely in the steady light of a conjured bluebell flame. I still don't understand how these artifacts work together, she admitted. The grimoire says they can tear the veil between worlds when combined, but what does that actually mean? Harry sat beside her, their shoulders touching. Maybe it's literal. Maybe there are other worlds beyond ours, and Morgana found a way to access them. Or maybe it's metaphorical, Daphne countered. The veil between life and death, perhaps. Or between different states of magic. Either way, it's too dangerous for anyone to control, Harry said firmly. Especially Voldemort. Daphne nodded, carefully rewrapping the dagger and placing it in Hermione's enchanted backpack. We should get some rest. Tomorrow will be another long day. I'll take first watch, Harry offered. We both need sleep, Daphne argued. I can set wards that will alert us if anyone approaches. Working together, they established a perimeter of detection and concealment charms around the shack, Daphne's specialty in ancient runes proving particularly useful for the more complex wards. Once secure, they settled on opposite ends of the dusty sofa, sharing a blanket Hermione had packed. The night was cold, and despite the protective spells, drafts whistled through the shack's many cracks and gaps. Thank you, Daphne said after a long silence. For what? For believing me. For helping me. She hesitated. Most people wouldn't have. Harry turned to look at her, his green eyes reflecting the blue flames. Most people didn't help me when I needed it either. When everyone thought I was the heir of Slytherin, or when they believed I cheated to enter the Triwizard Tournament. I didn't help you then, she pointed out. No, but you didn't actively work against me either. That's more than I can say for most of your housemates. He smiled slightly. Besides, you're helping me now. That counts for something. The distance between them on the sofa had somehow decreased, though Daphne couldn't remember either of them moving. She was acutely aware of his proximity, of the subtle scent of broomstick polish and soap that clung to him. The blood bond, she said suddenly. When I tried to send you a message earlier, I didn't think it would actually work. I felt it like a tug inside my mind, Harry explained. Not words exactly, more like emotions and images. Danger. Fear. The mirror passage. Could you try sending something to me? She asked, curious. Now. Why not? We should understand how it works if we're going to use it. Harry nodded, closing his eyes in concentration. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Daphne felt a strange warmth in her chest, followed by a series of impressions, safety, determination, and something else, something that made her cheeks flush. Did it work? Harry asked, opening his eyes. Yes, she replied, not quite meeting his gaze. I felt several things. Like what? Safety. Determination. And. She hesitated. Something else. Harry's cheeks reddened. Ah. That. An awkward silence fell between them, but not entirely uncomfortable. Finally, Daphne spoke again. How do we do this? After we find the heart of Avalon, I mean. Go back to being Potter and Greengrass, Gryffindor and Slytherin. Is that what you want? He asked quietly. No, she admitted. But I don't see how anything else works. The war is coming, Harry. Sides are being chosen. And you think we have to be on opposite sides? My family stays neutral. Always has. That might not be an option much longer, Harry pointed out. Not with what you are. Not with Voldemort aware of your existence. She knew he was right. Neutrality was a luxury her heritage no longer afforded her. Get some sleep, she said, changing the subject. I'll wake you in a few hours to take over the watch. But sleep proved elusive for Daphne. Her mind raced with thoughts of the quest ahead, of Montague's betrayal, of Voldemort's interest in Morgana's artifacts. And beneath it all, the confusing tangle of emotions she felt toward the boy sleeping beside her. Morning arrived with thin sunlight filtering through the boarded windows. Daphne woke to find herself embarrassingly close to Harry, her head resting against his shoulder. Somehow during the night, they'd gravitated toward each other for warmth. She carefully extracted herself without waking him and moved to the window, peering through a gap in the boards. Hogsmeade was visible in the distance, looking deceptively peaceful in the early light. No sign of searchers, but that didn't mean they weren't there. A soft chime from Harry's pocket drew her attention. The DA galleon was glowing. Harry stirred, immediately alert despite his rumpled appearance. Hermione, he mumbled, fishing out the coin. His expression darkened as he read the message. They're searching Hogsmeade. Montague's brought in more people, not ministry officials. Death Eaters? Daphne asked, alarmed. She doesn't say explicitly, but who else would they be? He ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up even more than usual. We need to move. Now. They quickly gathered their belongings, erased evidence of their presence, and slipped out the back of the shack. The morning air was crisp, the ground still wet with dew as they made their way cautiously to where they'd hidden their brooms. The western location, Daphne consulted the grimoire's map. It shows an island in a lake, but the details are vague. I know that area, Harry said, studying the map over her shoulder. Dumbledore mentioned it once, a place of old magic near the coast. The lake is called Avalon's Tears in wizarding maps. Speak my name at the shore of tears, and the way shall reveal itself, Daphne quoted from the grimoire. That must be it. They mounted their brooms and took off, flying west as quickly as the clean sweep's limitations would allow. The Scottish landscape unfurled beneath them, forests giving way to moors, then rugged hills that tumbled toward a distant coastline glittering in the morning sun. After nearly 2 hours of flying, they spotted it, a perfectly circular lake nestled between coastal hills, its surface a deep blue that indeed resembled tears. They landed at its eastern shore, dismounting stiffly after the long flight. Now what? Harry asked, looking around. The lake appeared entirely ordinary except for its perfect circularity, which seemed too precise to be natural. Speak my name at the shore of tears, Daphne repeated. Morgana's name, obviously. She stood at the water's edge and said clearly, Morgana Le Fay. Nothing happened. Maybe it's more specific, Harry suggested. Try her full name or title. Daphne tried again with variations, Morgana Le Fay, High Priestess of Avalon, Lady Morgana, Morgana Pendragon. Still nothing. Frustrated, Daphne paced along the shore. We're missing something. The message said the way would reveal itself. What if it's not her public name? Harry pondered. Maybe it's something only her heir would know. Something from your dreams or visions. Daphne closed her eyes, recalling the visions she'd experienced in the Chamber of Whispers. Morgana performing rituals, fighting Merlin, hiding the artifacts. Wait, she said suddenly. In one vision, someone called her by another name. A private name. She searched her memory. Morgan. They called her Morgan. Turning to the lake, she spoke confidently. Morgan. The still water began to ripple, then part, revealing a causeway of white stone extending from the shore toward the center of the lake. In the middle, an island appeared where none had been visible before, a small, green mound topped with standing stones. Impressive, Harry whistled. Shall we? They crossed the causeway cautiously, wands drawn. As they neared the island, Daphne felt a tingling sensation across her skin, like passing through a magical barrier. The island was larger than it had appeared from shore, perhaps 100 yards across. Ancient oak trees clustered at its center, surrounding a circle of 9 standing stones. The air felt different here, heavier, charged with magic unlike anything Daphne had experienced at Hogwarts. Do you feel that? She whispered. Harry nodded. It's like the air before a lightning storm. They approached the stone circle warily. Inside, the ground was covered with flowers that shouldn't have been blooming so early in spring, bluebells, foxgloves, and plants Daphne didn't recognize with silver-edged leaves that seemed to glow faintly. Something's watching us, Harry said quietly, scanning the trees. He was right. Daphne could feel eyes upon them, though she saw nothing but shadows between the ancient oaks. She stepped into the stone circle, feeling the magic intensify around her. I am the heir of Morgana Le Fay, she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. I seek the heart of Avalon. Silence answered her. Then, so subtly she almost missed it, the shadows between the trees shifted. A figure emerged, tall and slender, with silver-white hair that fell to its waist and eyes like polished amber. Its features were too perfect to be human, its movements too fluid. The heir returns, the being said, its voice musical and genderless. After so many turnings of the wheel. Are you Faye? Daphne asked hesitantly. The being inclined its head slightly. I am Arianel, guardian of the heart. Last of the Fae court to remain in your realm. Your realm? Harry repeated. You're not from here. Arianel's gaze shifted to Harry, studying him with unnerving intensity. The worlds were once less separated, human child. Before Merlin's folly. Before the sundering. The sundering, Daphne repeated. Is that what the artifacts can reverse? The separation between worlds? The triad of power was forged to maintain balance, Arianel confirmed. To allow passage between realms when needed. But in the wrong hands, it could tear the veil completely, unleashing chaos. That's why Morgana hid them, Harry realized. To prevent Merlin from destroying them. Merlin feared what he could not control, Arianel said with a hint of ancient anger. My people were hunted nearly to extinction. Morgana sheltered those who remained, helped us establish this sanctuary. And you've guarded the heart ever since, Daphne concluded. The Fae nodded. Until the true heir came to claim it. Though I did not expect you to bring a mate. What? Daphne spluttered, face burning. He's not we're not, your bloodlines have merged, Arianel observed calmly. I can see the bond between you. Harry cleared his throat awkwardly. We performed a ritual to find the Blackthorn wand. It required blood freely given. Blood freely given creates the strongest bonds, Arianel agreed. Morgana would approve. About the heart, Daphne redirected, still flustered. We've come for it because others seek it for destructive purposes. A dark wizard named Voldemort wants to use the triad of power. Arianel's expression darkened, the air around them cooling noticeably. This dark one, his soul is fractured. Unnaturally divided. Harry stiffened beside her. You can tell that? The Fae see beyond flesh, child. We see the soul's true nature. Arianel's amber eyes narrowed. As can you, Heir of Morgana. The gift lies dormant within you. I don't understand, Daphne said. In time, you will. Arianel gestured to the center of the stone circle. The heart of Avalon has awaited you. The ground between them shimmered, and a small pedestal rose from the earth, similar to the one that had held the dagger of souls. Atop it rested a small purple stone on a silver chain, the heart of Avalon. Unlike the other artifacts, the heart will only respond to Morgana's blood, Arianel explained. It has been attuned to your lineage. Daphne approached the pedestal cautiously. The purple stone pulsed with inner light, like a tiny heartbeat. What does it do, exactly, she asked. It protects the wearer from magical harm, Arianel replied. But that is merely its surface power. Its true purpose is to anchor the wielder during passage between worlds, to ensure they can find their way home. Daphne reached for the stone. The moment her fingers touched it, a jolt of energy passed through her body, and the purple light intensified. The stone felt warm against her palm, almost alive. It recognizes you, Arianel observed. Take it. It is your birthright. As Daphne lifted the heart from the pedestal, a sense of completion washed over her. With 2 of the 3 artifacts now in her possession, she could feel her connection to Morgana's legacy strengthening. Thank you, she said to the Fae Guardian. Arianel inclined its head again. The balance must be maintained, Heir of Morgana. Remember that when the time comes to use the triad of power. I will, Daphne promised, slipping the chain over her neck. The heart settled against her chest, warm and comforting. Now you must hurry, Arianel warned. The Dark Ones approach. They have tracked your magic. What? Harry looked alarmed. How close? Minutes away, Arianel replied. The causeway will remain open for your departure, but I cannot interfere beyond the island's boundaries. Such are the ancient pacts. Thank you for your help, Daphne said quickly. Is there anything else we should know about the artifacts? Only this, the Fae said gravely. The triad of power responds to intention as much as action. Use it with a clear purpose, or it may interpret your desires, unpredictably. With that cryptic warning, Arianel stepped backward into the shadows between the trees and vanished as if they'd never been there at all. We need to go, Harry urged, already moving toward the causeway. If Death Eaters are coming, wait. Daphne caught his arm. We need a plan. If they've tracked us here, they'll follow us anywhere we go. Back to Hogwarts, then, Harry decided. It's the only place with enough protection to hold them off. And we need to reunite the Blackthorn wand with these artifacts. Daphne nodded, following him quickly across the stone causeway. They had just reached the shore when the distinctive cracks of apparition split the air. Down! Harry shouted, pulling her behind an outcropping of rocks as spells blasted the ground where they'd stood moments before. 5 figures in black robes and silver masks materialized around the lake's perimeter, Death Eaters, led by a tall, unmasked man Daphne recognized with a shock, Arcturus Montague. The girl is mine. Montague shouted to his companions. Potter is expendable. Charming, Harry muttered, firing a stunning spell over the rocks. It missed, but forced one of the Death Eaters to dive for cover. Our brooms are 50 yards away, Daphne assessed, peering cautiously around their shelter. "We'll never reach them without cover." "I'll create a diversion," Harry said grimly. "When I give the signal, run for the brooms. Don't be ridiculous. We stick together. There's no time to argue." A blasting curse hit their rocky shelter, showering them with debris. Harry grabbed Daphne's hand. "The blood bond," he said urgently. "Can you feel it?" She nodded, aware of the tenuous connection between them. "Let's try to use it," he suggested. "Coordinate our magic. On 3, we both cast shield charms, but channel them through the bond." It was a wild idea, but they had nothing to lose. Daphne nodded, gripping his hand tighter. 1, 2, 3. Protego Maxima, they shouted in unison. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Instead of separate shields, their magic combined into a dome of shimmering energy that expanded outward from their position with explosive force. The nearest Death Eater was thrown backward, his mask torn away to reveal a shocked face. "Now!" Harry pulled her to her feet, and they ran for the brooms, maintaining the shield between them through sheer force of will and their clasped hands. Curses bounced off the shield as they sprinted across open ground. They reached the brooms just as the combined shield began to flicker and fail. "Go!" Harry shouted, mounting his firebolt. Daphne kicked off hard, narrowly avoiding a cutting curse that sliced through her sleeve. Harry was right beside her, firing defensive spells over his shoulder as they accelerated upward. The Death Eaters grew smaller below, still firing curses that fell short as the distance increased. All except Montague, who stood watching their escape with calculating eyes, making no attempt to stop them. "Why isn't he trying to stop us?" Daphne called over the wind. "Because he knows where we're going," Harry replied grimly. "Back to Hogwarts, where the Blackthorn wand is hidden." "Then we're leading them straight to it," she realized with horror. "Not if we get there first. We've got a head start." Harry leaned lower over his broom. "Follow me, and don't slow down for anything." They flew faster than Daphne had ever flown, the wind tearing at her robes and hair. The clean sweep strained to keep pace with Harry's firebolt, its older design not meant for such sustained speed. After an hour of grueling flight, Hogwarts came into view, its towers rising against the afternoon sky. Daphne's arms ached from gripping the broom, and her face was numb from the cold wind. "We can't just fly in through the front gates," she called to Harry. "Umbridge will have the whole castle on alert." "We're not going through the gates," he replied. "There's a passage from the Shrieking Shack that comes out under the Whomping Willow. We'll land in a forest and sneak in that way." They adjusted course, descending toward the dark expanse of the Forbidden Forest. Landing in a small clearing, they dismounted on shaky legs, muscles protesting after the long flight. "How far to the shack from here?" Daphne asked, stowing her broom beneath a fallen log. "About a mile," Harry estimated, checking the Marauder's map. "And we're in luck, the path looks clear." They moved quickly through the forest, alert for any sign of pursuit. The trees provided good cover, but also cast deep shadows that could hide threats. "If Montague and the Death Eaters come to Hogwarts," Daphne said as they walked, "what's stopping them from just taking the Blackthorn wand from the Room of Requirement?" "The room's nature," Harry explained. "It becomes exactly what you need, but you have to know precisely what you're looking for. We hid the wand among thousands of other objects accumulated over centuries. But if they capture one of us, then we have bigger problems than the wand," Harry finished grimly. They reached the Shrieking Shack without incident and slipped inside. The tunnel beneath it was low and narrow, forcing them to crouch as they made their way toward Hogwarts. "When we get back," Harry said as they navigated the passage, "we need to find a safe place for all 3 artifacts. Somewhere even more secure than the Room of Requirement." "The Chamber of Whispers," Daphne suggested. "Morgana created it specifically to hide her legacy. But Montague already knows about it. He knows the entrance, but not what lies beyond." Remember the crystal that showed us Morgana's memories? I think there might be deeper chambers we haven't discovered yet. They emerged from the tunnel beneath the whomping willow, freezing its thrashing branches with a well-aimed spell at the knot on its trunk. The Hogwarts grounds were eerily quiet, no students visible despite the pleasant afternoon weather. Something's wrong, Harry murmured, checking the map again. Everyone's inside. There, the Great Hall. Almost the entire school is gathered there. Umbridge, Daphne guessed. She must have called an assembly after we escaped. They slipped into the castle through a side entrance, avoiding the main doors where Filch might be watching. The corridors were deserted as they made their way cautiously toward the 7th floor and the room of requirement. Wait, Harry said suddenly, pulling Daphne into an alcove. Look at the map. Montague's already here, in Umbridge's office with Snape and Malfoy. Malfoy? Daphne's stomach twisted. He must be telling them about the room of requirement. The inquisitorial squad discovered it when they caught the DA. Then we need to hurry, Harry urged. Before they figure out exactly what we hid there. They raced up staircases and through corridors, narrowly avoiding Mrs. Norris on the 5th floor. By the time they reached the 7th floor corridor, they were both breathing hard. I'll pace and open the room, Harry said. You watch the map. Daphne kept her eyes on the Marauder's map as Harry walked 3 times before the blank wall, concentrating on finding the place where they'd hidden the wand. A door materialized, and they slipped inside. The room of hidden things was exactly as they'd left it, a cathedral-sized space filled with towering piles of discarded objects. Harry led the way through the maze-like paths, retracing their steps to where they'd hidden the Blackthorn wand. Here, he said, stopping at the pile of ancient textbooks. He reached behind them and pulled out the tarnished silver box. Daphne took it, placing her bloodied fingertip against the lock. Sanguinum meum apparet, she whispered, and the box clicked open. The Blackthorn wand lay inside, just as they'd left it. As Daphne lifted it, she felt the same surge of power she'd experienced when first claiming it. Now, with the heart of Avalon around her neck and the dagger of souls in her pocket, the power was even more intense, the 3 artifacts resonating with each other in her presence. We have all 3 now, she said, a mixture of awe and trepidation in her voice. The triad of power, together again after 1,000 years. And we need to hide them immediately, Harry insisted, checking the map again. His expression darkened. Too late. Montague, Umbridge, and 3 others are heading this way. They'll be here in minutes. How? How could they know so quickly? Someone's watching us, Harry realized, scanning the towering piles around them. Someone already in the room. A slow clapping sound emerged from behind a nearby cabinet. Draco Malfoy stepped into view, his pointed face twisted in a triumphant smirk. Well done, Potter. You've led us right to the prize. His grey eyes shifted to Daphne. And you, Greengrass. Who would have thought the Ice Queen would fall so far? Consorting with half-bloods, stealing ministry property. The artifacts belong to my bloodline, Malfoy, Daphne said coldly, her grip tightening on the Blackthorn wand. They were never the ministry's to claim. So highborn, even now, Draco sneered. But the Dark Lord has other ideas about their ownership. He's very interested in meeting Morgana's heir. Is that why you betrayed us to Montague? To curry favor with Voldemort? Harry demanded. Malfoy flinched at the name but quickly recovered. Politics, Potter. Something you've never understood. My family will be rewarded beyond measure when the Dark Lord has the triad of power. Your family will be slaves like all the rest, Harry retorted. Just more privileged ones until he decides you're expendable. Enough talk, Daphne cut in, raising the Blackthorn wand. Step aside, Malfoy. I don't want to hurt you. Draco laughed. You won't get the chance. They're already here. The door to the room of requirement burst open, and Arcturus Montague strode in, flanked by Umbridge and two masked Death Eaters. Behind them, looking distinctly uncomfortable, stood Professor Snape. "Miss Greengrass," Montague called, his voice echoing through the vast room. "How considerate of you to gather all 3 artifacts for us. It saves us considerable effort." "Severus," Umbridge simpered, "you assured me Potter and the girl would be dealt with appropriately when found. Now is your chance to demonstrate your loyalty to the Ministry." Snape's expression remained impassive as he assessed the situation. His black eyes met Daphne's briefly, then Harry's, before returning to Umbridge. "Of course, Headmistress," he said silkily. "This has gone beyond Ministry business, Dolores," Montague said, his tone patronizing. "My associates will take charge of the artifacts, and the heir." "Your associates?" Umbridge looked confused, then alarmed as one of the masked figures stepped forward. "What is the meaning of this? I was told this was an official Ministry operation." "Change of plans," Montague said dismissively. "The Dark Lord commands, and we obey." Umbridge's toad-like face paled. "The Dark Lord? But he's not, he can't be." "Silence, you pathetic woman," the Death Eater snapped, removing his mask to reveal the aristocratic features of Lucius Malfoy. "Your usefulness has ended." Harry and Daphne had backed slowly away during this exchange, moving deeper into the maze of hidden objects. Harry leaned close to whisper in her ear. "On my signal, target the cabinet to their left. It's full of old potions, should create enough chaos for us to escape." Daphne nodded almost imperceptibly, angling her wand toward the indicated cabinet. "The artifacts, Miss Greengrass," Montague called, extending his hand. "There's nowhere to run. Surrender them now, and perhaps the Dark Lord will be merciful." "Somehow I doubt that," she replied, playing for time. "What would you know of the Dark Lord's mercy?" Lucius Malfoy asked silkily. "A mere girl, hiding behind Potter for protection." "I don't need protection," Daphne said, straightening her posture. The heart of Avalon warmed against her chest, and she felt a strange clarity settling over her. "I am the heir of Morgana Le Fay, and these artifacts are my birthright." As she spoke, something changed in the air around her, a shimmering, like heat haze, that radiated outward from where she stood. The heart glowed visibly through her robes, and the blackthorn wand hummed with energy in her hand. Snape was the first to notice, his eyes widening fractionally. "Dolores," he said quietly, "I suggest you leave immediately." "I will do no such thing." Umbridge blustered. "This is still a Ministry matter, and now, Harry." Daphne shouted. Harry's spell hit the cabinet with precision, causing glass vials to explode in a cascade of multicolored potions. Smoke and caustic fumes erupted as incompatible mixtures combined, creating instant chaos. In the confusion, Daphne grabbed Harry's hand and pulled him behind a towering pile of furniture. They ran through the labyrinthine paths, ducking spells that sailed over their heads as their pursuers recovered. "We can't escape through the door," Harry panted. "They're blocking it." "We need another way out," Daphne agreed. "The room becomes what you need, right? Can it create an exit?" "Worth a try," Harry nodded. They focused together, concentrating on their need for escape. To their amazement, a small door appeared in the wall beside them, not the main entrance, but a new exit that hadn't existed moments before. "Brilliant," Harry breathed, reaching for the handle. "Stop them." Montague's voice echoed through the smoke-filled room. They burst through the door into a corridor Daphne didn't recognize, narrower than the standard Hogwarts passages, with rough stone walls lit by ancient torches. "Where are we?" she asked as they ran, the door disappearing behind them as soon as it closed. "No idea," Harry admitted. "I've never seen this part of the castle before." The corridor curved and descended, leading them deeper into Hogwarts than Daphne had ever been. The air grew cooler, with a strange subtle vibration that she felt more than heard. "The artifacts," she realized suddenly. "They're guiding us." The heart of Avalon at her throat pulsed with purple light, and the blackthorn wand seemed to pull her forward. Even the dagger of souls, secure in her pocket, emanated a subtle warmth against her leg. They followed the artifact's guidance through twisting passages until they emerged into a circular chamber that Daphne recognized immediately, though she'd never entered it from this direction. The Chamber of Whispers, she breathed. The room of requirement created a passage directly to it. The floating orbs of blue-white light brightened to welcome them, illuminating the stone benches and the central dais with its crystal. But something was different. The crystal pulsed with energy even before they approached it. "They're coming," Harry warned, checking the Marauder's map. "This area's unplottable, but they'll find us eventually. They're searching the 7th floor now. Then we need to act quickly." Daphne moved to the crystal, placing her hand upon it. Morgana's echo said there were deeper chambers. Maybe there's somewhere to hide the artifacts more securely. The crystal flared beneath her touch, and the voice they'd heard before filled the chamber. "The triad of power returns. The circle nears completion. We need help," Daphne said urgently. "Voldemort's followers seek the artifacts. Is there somewhere deeper we can hide them? Hiding is no longer an option, blood of my blood. The time has come to choose your path. Will you embrace your heritage fully or continue to run from it?" Daphne hesitated. "I've accepted who I am. I'm your heir." Acceptance is not embrace. To truly command the triad of power, you must open yourself completely to the legacy I left behind. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Harry stepped forward. "Whatever she decides, I stand with her. The bond you share strengthens her, as it should." "Very well. Place the artifacts upon the dais." All three, together. Daphne removed the heart of Avalon from around her neck and placed it on the dais. Beside it, she laid the blackthorn wand and finally the dagger of souls. As the three artifacts came together, they began to glow with synchronized pulses of light, silver, purple, and midnight blue. "Now, Heir of Morgana, place your hands above them and speak the words, Sanguis potestas, Sanguis veritas, Sanguis hereditatem." Taking a deep breath, Daphne positioned her hands above the glowing artifacts. "Sanguis potestas, Sanguis veritas, Sanguis hereditatem." The chamber shuddered, and the dais split open beneath the artifacts. They didn't fall, however, but floated in the air as a spiral staircase was revealed, descending into darkness. "Below lies the true heart of my sanctuary. A place between worlds where the veil grows thin. There, your full power awaits awakening." "And the artifacts?" Daphne asked. "Take them with you. They are the key to what comes next." The crystal's light dimmed, and the artifacts floated gently back down, no longer pulsing in unison. Harry looked at Daphne questioningly. "What now?" "We go down," she decided, gathering the artifacts. "It's the only way forward." The staircase spiraled deep beneath the chamber, much deeper than the one that had led to the blackthorn wand's hiding place. As they descended, Daphne felt the air change, becoming somehow thicker, charged with magic so potent she could almost taste it. "Can you feel that?" she whispered. Harry nodded. "It's like nothing I've ever experienced. Not even in the Department of Mysteries." The mention of the department reminded Daphne of Montague's pursuit. "How long do you think we have before they find the Chamber of Whispers?" "Not long enough," Harry said grimly. "Montague knew about it before. He'll lead them there eventually." The staircase ended in a perfectly circular room with a domed ceiling that mirrored the night sky, though they were far underground. In the center stood a raised platform with 3 depressions sized exactly for the triad of power. Around the platform, a channel was carved into the floor in a complex pattern of interlocking spirals. "It's a ritual space," Daphne realized. "For what kind of ritual?" Harry asked warily. Before she could answer, a shimmering apparition formed before them, not the disembodied voice they'd heard before, but a full manifestation of a woman with raven-black hair and eyes that shifted between storm gray and vivid purple. "Morgana," Daphne breathed. The apparition smiled. "A fragment only, preserved through magic beyond what your time remembers. I have waited for you, heir of my blood." "Why me?" Daphne asked the question that had haunted her since discovering her heritage. "Why now?" "The blood awakens when it is needed," Morgana's echo replied. "Great change approaches your world, a shifting of powers long held in balance. The Dark One who pursues you is but a symptom of a deeper sickness." "Voldemort," Harry supplied. "His name matters not. His nature does." Morgana's gaze shifted to Harry. "You bear his mark, yet resist his influence. Interesting. What does all this have to do with the artifacts?" Daphne pressed, aware that time was running short. "The triad of power was created to maintain balance between realms," Morgana explained. "In my time, the boundary between the mortal world and the Fey realms was purposefully thinned by those who understood the value of such exchange. Merlin sought to sever that connection permanently, fearing powers he could not control. And you stopped him," Harry concluded. "I preserved a path, a way for the worlds to remain connected, however tenuously." Morgana gestured to the platform. "The triad can fully restore that connection, or sever it forever. The choice belongs to my bloodline." "And you think I should restore it," Daphne said, understanding dawning. "That's what you meant by embracing my heritage." Morgana's image flickered slightly. "Our time grows short. Your pursuers approach the upper chamber. You must decide quickly, accept the full power of your bloodline and open the way between worlds, or remain as you are and face what comes with limited strength." "If I open the way, what happens?" Daphne asked urgently. "Magic changes. The old powers return, wild magic, earth magic, blood magic. Magic beyond ministry control or classification." Morgana's eyes gleamed. "Magic that could stand against even your Dark Lord." "And the cost?" Harry asked, always practical. "All power has a price," Morgana acknowledged. "The heir must serve as guardian of the gateway, maintaining balance between worlds. It is a lifetime commitment, not to be undertaken lightly." Daphne looked at Harry, conflict evident in her expression. "I don't know if I'm ready for that responsibility." "Nobody ever feels ready for their destiny," he said quietly. "I certainly didn't." Distant sounds of intrusion echoed down the stairwell, voices, footsteps, the crash of magic against stone. Their pursuers had found the Chamber of Whispers. "Decide," Morgana urged, her image growing fainter. "My power can shield this inner sanctuary only briefly without the triad's activation." Daphne straightened her shoulders, decision crystallizing. "I'll do it. I accept my heritage, fully." Morgana's apparition smiled. "Place the artifacts in their positions. The wand to the north, the dagger to the east, the heart to the west." With steady hands, Daphne arranged the triad of power as instructed. As each artifact settled into its depression, it began to glow with increasing intensity. "Now what?" she asked. "The ritual requires blood freely given, both yours as the heir, and his as your bonded." Morgana indicated the channel carved around the platform. "The pattern must be completed for the gateway to open." Harry stepped forward without hesitation, drawing his wand to create a small cut on his palm. "Tell me where." "The southern point," Morgana directed. Harry let his blood drip into the channel at the indicated position. The moment it touched the stone, the blood flowed outward in both directions, following the spiral pattern as if pulled by an invisible force. Daphne moved to the northern point, opposite Harry, and cut her own palm. Her blood joined his in the channels, completing the circuit. As the two bloodlines met and mingled, the entire pattern ignited with silver-blue fire that burned without heat. "Speak the words," Morgana instructed, her voice fading as her image grew increasingly transparent. "Portam aper ire, mundos coniungere, magicum liberare. Together, Daphne and Harry repeated the incantation, Portam Aperire, Mundos Coniungera, Magicum Liberare. The triad of power erupted with blinding light, and the floor beneath the platform seemed to dissolve, revealing not a pit but a swirling vortex of stars and cosmic energy, a literal gateway between worlds. Power surged through Daphne, unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her body felt simultaneously weightless and impossibly heavy, as if gravity itself couldn't decide how to affect her. Knowledge poured into her mind, spells, incantations, magical theories lost for centuries. She understood now what Morgana had meant by fully embracing her heritage. Across the platform, Harry gasped, clearly experiencing some echo of the transformation through their blood bond. His green eyes widened as he looked at her. Daphne, your eyes. She knew without seeing that they had changed, taking on the shifting greater purple quality that had marked Morgana's own gaze. The final physical manifestation of her heritage. As the gateway stabilized, the vortex contracted until it was contained entirely beneath the platform, though its energy still pulsed visibly. The triad of power continued to glow, maintaining the connection between worlds. It's done, Daphne breathed, feeling the new power settling into her bones, her blood, her very essence. Just then, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Footsteps thundered down the spiral staircase. "They're here," Harry warned, raising his wand. Daphne turned toward the entrance, a strange calm washing over her. With her newfound power, Montague and his Death Eaters no longer seemed so threatening. "Stay behind me," she said to Harry. "Not a chance," he replied, moving to stand beside her instead. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The first figure to emerge was Arcturus Montague, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled, his cold eyes widening as he took in the scene before him, the gateway, the glowing artifacts, and Daphne transformed by her awakened power. "What have you done?" he demanded, raising his wand. "Restored balance," Daphne replied simply. "Something your department has sought to prevent for centuries." Lucius Malfoy appeared next, followed by the other Death Eater and, surprisingly, Draco, who looked far less confident than he had in the room of requirement. "The Dark Lord will be most interested in this development," Lucius said, his eyes fixed on the triad of power. "Your Dark Lord is welcome to try taking them," Daphne said, her voice carrying an authority it hadn't possessed before. "But I wouldn't recommend it." "Insolent girl," the unnamed Death Eater snarled, firing a curse without warning. Daphne didn't even raise her wand. The heart of Avalon pulsed on the platform, and the spell dissipated harmlessly before reaching her. "As I said," she smiled coldly, "I wouldn't recommend it." Montague, more calculating than his companions, assessed the situation quickly. "The gateway is open," he said, almost to himself. "After all these years." "You knew," Daphne realized. The Department of Mysteries knew what the Triad of Power actually did. "Of course we knew," Montague snapped. "We've studied Morgana's legacy for generations. But we never found an heir with sufficient power to activate the gateway." "Until now," Harry said, understanding dawning. "That's why you've been watching Daphne's family. You were waiting for a strong enough heir to appear, then you planned to control them. The Ministry cannot allow unregulated access to other realms," Montague insisted. "The risk is too great." "It's not up to the Ministry anymore," Daphne said firmly. "As Morgana's heir, I am the guardian of this gateway now. Its power answers to me alone. The Dark Lord will not accept such a threat to his supremacy," Lucius warned. "If you will not serve him willingly, he will find ways to compel your cooperation." Daphne laughed, the sound echoing with newfound confidence. "Voldemort is powerful, but he understands nothing of the magic I now command. Let him try to compel me. He'll find it educational." She raised her hand, not even needing her wand now for simple magic. The air before her rippled, and all 5 intruders were pushed backward toward the staircase by an invisible force. "This sanctuary is protected," she announced. "You are not welcome here. Leave, while I still permit it." This isn't over, Greengrass, Montague promised, stumbling to keep his footing. The Department of Mysteries doesn't surrender its interests so easily. Neither does the Dark Lord, Lucius added. Then we have a problem, Harry spoke up, because neither does she. Or me. The intruders retreated, recognizing, at least temporarily, that they were outmatched. Draco lingered briefly, staring at Daphne with an unreadable expression before following his father up the stairs. When they were alone again, Harry turned to Daphne. That was incredible. I feel incredible, she admitted. Like I've finally found a part of myself I never knew was missing. She looked down at the gateway, still swirling beneath the platform. But this responsibility. Harry, I don't know if I can handle it alone. You won't have to, he said simply, taking her hand. The blood bond between them pulsed visibly now, a thread of golden light connecting their clasped hands. What happens now? Harry asked. With the gateway open, what changes? Everything, Daphne replied truthfully. Magic itself will begin to shift, gradually returning to its older, wilder forms. The Ministry's carefully categorized spells and regulated wands won't be the only path to power anymore. They'll fight it, Harry warned. The Ministry, Voldemort, neither side will welcome this change. I know. She squeezed his hand. That's why I'll need allies. People who understand that magic isn't inherently light or dark, it just is. People willing to learn the old ways alongside the new. Harry smiled. Sounds like a job for Dumbledore's army. Daphne laughed. Perhaps. Though I think we might need a new name. Morgana's heirs, he suggested with a teasing grin. We'll work on it. She sobered slightly. This doesn't end our other problems, you know. Voldemort still wants you dead. The prophecy still hangs over your head. True, Harry acknowledged. But now we have new weapons in that fight. Magic he won't expect or understand. And allies he can't imagine, Daphne added, thinking of Arianel and the Fae folk who might now return to the wizarding world through the reopened gateway. They stood together at the edge of the platform, watching the swirling vortex of cosmic energy. Daphne felt both humbled and empowered by what she had unleashed. The heritage she had initially feared had become her greatest strength. I never expected any of this when I first had those dreams, she said quietly. I was just the Ice Queen of Slytherin, keeping everyone at a distance. And I was just the boy who lived, trying to survive each year, Harry replied. Funny how things change. Is it change, though? Or just becoming who we were always meant to be? She looked at him, her new eyes reflecting the gateway's light. What do you think? Instead of answering with words, Harry leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle at first, then deepened as she responded. The blood bond between them flared with golden light, and for a moment, Daphne felt as if they stood not just between worlds but between destinies, the past and future merging into a perfect present. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Harry smiled. I think we get to decide who we become. Legacy or not, prophecy or not. Together? Daphne asked, surprising herself with the vulnerability in her voice. Together, Harry confirmed, his green eyes steady and sure. Whatever comes next. And as they stood in Morgana's sanctuary, the gateway between worlds pulsing with ancient magic beneath them, Daphne knew that whatever dangers awaited, whether from Voldemort, the Ministry, or the unknown consequences of the reopened pathway, they would face them side by side. The heir of Morgana and the boy who lived, united by blood and choice, writing their own destiny in the changing magical world. The path ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in her life, Daphne Greengrass felt truly ready to walk it. Not alone, but with Harry Potter beside her. Not as the Ice Queen, but as herself, fully awakened, fully empowered, fully alive. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.